I love this song. This one's a banger. Oh yeah, let's go. I still think we should burn that freaking hot tower down to the ground, though. That thing's offensive. It's so tall, and well, they worship that nasty faith of the seven. I hate that religion. Oh, well, it's going to be a good live stream. Hey, Grey Waste Tim, how you doing?
I'm fine, Nana. How are you?
Oh, well, I heard y'all were talking about some moons today.
That's right, we're talking ice moons and fire moons.
Oh, well. Are we gonna talk about, are we gonna burn the moons or what? How's that going?
Well, we might burn the moons. Some of the moons are gonna crash into things.
I heard there was 2 moons. That sounds like one too many.
I think you might be right. I think there were 2 moons, and I think we lost one. But we're gonna try and figure out what happened to it.
Oh, that sounds like it might be a problem, Tim. Hey there. I just lost a couple viewers, but gained the hearts of many more. So, hi. And we are going to talk about Nana Vagar and the Ice Dragon and Vega and the Northern Celestial. I've got, Tim, I've got Stellarium queued up here. Oh, I'm going to have to redo everything. That's okay. I had it all set up. That's all right. I can find the stars again. Hello, friends. It is Moons of Ice and Fire. It is Grey Waste Tim. Hi, Grey Waste Tim. You're from the YouTube channel Grey Waste Tim. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct. You can find me on YouTube at Grey Waste Tim, and you can find me on Twitter at the Grey Waste. Very easy to find. My Grey Waste Tim's pretty much all my socials.
Do you have the right microphone selected? Can you just double check that? You sound a little distant. And the thumbnail art does slap. That's from Wendy Darling, who is in the chat. So everybody give it up for her. This is the new Nissa Nissa artwork. Very cool.
Let's try it now. I think I had it on the wrong setting.
We are in a whole different universe now, Grey Waste Tim. Yes. So yeah, we do love our fandom artists, and we will have a new commission from the one and only Atlantis Morissette coming up this week. It's going to be Corlos, son of Castor, the first Casterly, because there's no art of him, or at least there isn't publicly. One is being created. Because funny thing about that Lan the Clever video, 2 videos. It was big, and we're gonna. I didn't start talking about Lan until like 25 minutes into the video, Tim. The first half was all the Casterly stuff. So, Secret Origin of Casterly Rock this week, then Lan the Clever, 1, 2, boom, boom. So, and then also a very special live stream coming at the end of this month on the 31st. It is, checks notes, Grey Waste Tim's birthday.
Yes, for those who remember last year, my birthday fell on a Saturday, and I did a 5-hour stream just reading about some Lovecraftian fiction that had an effect. Well, this year we're falling on a Sunday, so of course we're going to celebrate here on Starry Wisdom, and we're going to be doing the Theon Wind sample chapter.
I told Tim we could pick any chapter before I was even finished saying that. We're going poor old Theon, hanging out on the wall like the guy in the Monty Python dungeon, clapping along to the Knights of the Round Table. Poor Theon. It sounds uncomfortable. Always makes my shoulders hurt when I read that chapter. So, in any case, thank you everyone who watched George Martin's Secret Story, a video that I made this week about, the same old stuff. Now, trying to, I have to push the Premalot. That's the one, Martin. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. If you didn't catch it, it's awesome. It is my most concise sort of encapsulation of the layering of the scenes and the mythical astronomy symbolism and all that fun stuff. So show it to your friends who don't understand why you're so freaked out about these books when there hasn't been a new book in 14 years and we're still all here every week. And they're like, why is that? Show them that video. And we're going to follow up on that with little Moons of Ice and Fire. So funny story. Greyways Tim called me up. Yeah, I'm sorry, Tim. Called me up during the week, and he was like, "Dude, you know, in your video, you were saying like there might be moons of ice and fire, and there's a pattern of like two women that like I found all this stuff." And he carries on for a couple minutes, and I have, long story short, I have some old podcasts called Moons of Ice and Fire, where I traced out this pattern of a solar king with two moon queens, or occasionally a queen with two men that are doing the moon thing, which we'll talk about. And so Tim hadn't heard that. And so basically, Tim, you had the experience that I hope everybody has when they watch a couple of my videos, which is to like take an idea and go back to the book and run with it and like have that joy of discovery and have fun. So tell us about your experience. What did you find?
So, yeah, it's funny because I thought I was being so original. And then Dave's like, yeah, I covered all this like 7 years ago in the podcast. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't find your channel until 2020. Okay. During the height of the Corona beer sales, when we were all in solitary and watching Tiger King. That's when I discovered the Lucifer Means Lightbringer YouTube channel, when I had all the time in the world to actually sit down and read these books. So, but yeah, it is an experience of like where you come up with an idea and it turns out, yeah, someone else had that same idea, but you come up with it independent of them. And it just goes to show like how much the symbolism works, that we can come to these same conclusions independent of one another without any kind of influence on that. And our minds just pick all this up and it's like, yeah, this makes sense. It's just unfortunate that, like you said, I thought I was coming forward with a new idea, and it's like, no, we're kind of retreading some old ground. But you know what? You yourself said, but it needs an update. It
does. It's been a while, and I tried not to use my Simpsons did it voice. I hope I was not a dick to you.
Oh no, it was absolutely fine. I just thought it was fun. I was like, damn it, I thought I was being original.
but to your point, none of us are original. The more correct a theory is, quote unquote, it just means we're sniffing what George is cooking. Right? Like he's the one setting all these patterns. So all we're doing is tracing them out. I hope I'm doing a good job, just like Tim is and everyone else. Michael Talks got a new video this morning. Haven't watched it yet, but shout out. So yeah, it is fun when other people, I had the same thing with the Great Empire of the Dawn video. I made, not that video, but theory, back before I made the new Great Empire of the Dawn videos, and it was just a theory and it was here and there. I found a Reddit write-up that was like, here's my Great Empire of the Dawn theory. And it was the whole thing. At the end, he mentioned my name and a couple other names. And I was like, bro, you just control pasted on my whole thing. And I kind of came at him, not too aggressively, but I was like, hey, man, what gives, you know? And it turns out that like I talked to him and he found it all himself. Like he mentioned me because he found me after he had written his own thing and was like, oh, this guy already did it. And he gave me a shout out, but it was there to be found. So yeah, anyone can find it. And it was uncanny. But then I realized, I was like, no, if I have a good theory, that means that everyone should be able to see it. So that's actually just good confirmation. And I learned to be nicer to people after that.
Yep. So sometimes we just follow the same. We get to the same place by taking different roads. I know I found your channel because of Alt Shift X, who had mentioned it in his strangest places in the world of Ice and Fire, and he had mentioned you. And that is when I first heard like all this Lovecraft stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember that. And then again, because it was because we were all in quarantine, I was like, that's when I took a second plunge into these books with reading it with more of an eye to look between the lines. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's more. And then that's how I found your channel. And I was like, because I wanted to I was like, I have questions now, and I want to start exploring these deeper themes because there is obviously a lot more here that I did not pick up in my initial read. It took a second go to pick it up, and then again, additional rereads. And it's like, oh yeah, the more you come back to this, the more you find. It's such a treasure trove.
Yeah. And the word I was looking for is actually humble. It's not that I needed to learn to be nicer. I need to learn to be more humble. Like when I was first starting out making theories, there was this rush, partly from coming from the Westeros org forums. You want to figure it out before somebody else does. And so there is a little bit of this competition. Like, no, that's my idea. That's my idea. I came up with that first. But over time, of course, I transitioned to more of a mindset like, I'm here to facilitate fun and enjoyment of the material. So it's actually better if I only throw out part of it and let other people fill in and take the rest of the journey themselves. Because like, I'm not trying to like have all the fun for everyone or be the genius that figured everything out. Like, I'm very happy to just have a channel where people hang out and talk about all this shit. So like, yeah, that's it was fun to hear you call with the, you were just so fired up, Tim. You were ready to write Moons of Ice and Fire, the whole essay series. You were going to do it.
And I ended up doing that. If people saw my Twitter post, it's like Dave. Then when we were prepping, Dave comes at me again. He's like, "Okay, this isn't more than just an outline. You literally wrote an essay." And I'm like, "Well, I'm more of the better to have too much than not enough type of guy. You can trim the fat."
So Sean is a fan of the essays that masquerade as outlines. He'll use bullet points, but it's all sentences. I'm like, that's not quite an outline. You just write the essay and then we turn it back into. But everybody has different processes. The point is to get the thoughts out. You were very eloquent. I did lift some of your verbiage right into this outline. So let's say what we're going to talk about here. This is Two Moons theory. The simple idea is that the Carthene legend says there was once two moons, and this one of them, something bad happened, comet hit it, eclipse, whatever, and moon meteors happened, long night happened. We still have a moon in the sky, so this is an obvious culprit, as I mentioned in the video, George's secret story, for why the seasons might be messed up. We know that the answer to this is not a pure astrophysics answer. It's not a hard science answer. But we do know that George is loosely inspired by natural cycles and processes, and certainly things like volcanoes and meteors and floods and, storm gods and things like that. So we're trying to think about this idea of two moons in a sort of magical context. This in the sense that obsidian is frozen fire. It's cooled magma, so it has fire magic in it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and when I came at you about doing this topic, I did come in with a mindset of like, what would happen if a planet lost a moon? And obviously, if the Earth were to lose its moon, it would have a absolute detrimental effect. And then I was like, okay, but what if theoretically two moons? And when I looked into it, I was like, this actually sounds a lot like how nature and the seasons function on Planetos, in Westeros, in Essos, what we know, and of course all the falling rocks meteor shenanigans. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. And then of course, so it's like George took this real scientific theory of like, what if you had a planet with two moons, but one that could spur life? What would happen if it lost one of its moons? What were the effects? And it's like, well, it's not as detrimental as Earth losing its only moon, but it still would have a monumental effect, because you're left with a second moon that's now picking up the slack. So not everything's going to go to hell as quickly as it will be with Earth, but there's obviously going to be some huge ramifications if this were to happen. And of course, that brings us back to the Carthene legend of a moon wandering too close to the sun and breaking apart. It's like, what if this were to happen? And I also know, I haven't played Elden Ring, but from what I've been told is that...
Well, hold on. Let me pause you on the Elden Ring before you switch thoughts there. So I want to come back to Elden Ring, so put a pin in that. But basically, what you're saying and what George has done is he's taken the idea that moons govern axial tilt, seasons, climate, tides, rotation speed, and all that stuff, even volcanic activity. The fact that we have tectonic plates is in part because of the moon. That's very important. Our planet would be dead otherwise. And he's saying, if we mess with the moon, it's going to mess with that stuff in a magical way. So the seasons are going to be magically screwed up. We had storms and tides and floods and, up from down, the world is thrown off its axis in metaphorical and magical ways. But I just want to say, like, don't think too hard about it. Like, if there really was a second moon and it blew up, it probably would wipe out all life on Earth. As Tim pointed out, there should be a ring, really. Not all of the pieces would fall to the planet. Some would, but most of it would stay in orbit and form a ring. And there's not a ring, so...
Yeah. because like when it comes to real life, one of our closest examples of this would be the planet Mars. Mars has two moons, Phobos and Deimos, but it is eventually going to lose one of those moons. It's not going to happen for 30 to 50 million years, but Phobos rotates around Mars faster than the planet itself rotates. This causes a pull on Phobos, and Phobos is gradually moving closer to Mars. So one of two things are going to happen. Either Phobos is going to one day get pulled so close that it collides with Mars, or this gravitational pull is going to rip Phobos apart, in which case it will then form a ring around Mars. The problem is, since Mars doesn't have life on it, as far as we don't know the effects of what the effects on life would have if this were to happen. I mean, I'm sure the impact, the collision theory, wiping out all life. The forming a ring theory, that one's like is anyone's guess exactly what would happen.
Right. And so basically it's like, don't worry about, well, how many meteors and how big to kill this many. It's as big as it needed to be to produce a long night that fit the story is the answer. So we only go so far with like doing the technicals of it. But the idea that there was a meteor shower is everywhere. And this idea of the two moons gives us kind of a way to knit all this together. The cause of the long night, because everyone, it's like intuitive that the seasons being screwed up is tied to the long night. And the Maesters even say, perhaps before the long night, we had regular seasons, but it's hard to say. So yeah, it's like those should be tied together. And the moons gives you an answer for that potentially. Now, you were saying in Elden Ring, there is something similar. What is that?
See, I haven't actually played Elden Ring, so I'm going on hearsay, but I do know that there is a story about that there used to be a second moon, that one ripped apart, and the world of Elden Ring is still experiencing these fragments, some of which are still falling to the planet, and some of which are still floating and occasionally can be seen in the night sky.
Well, let's turn the stream off then. That's pretty much it. So Elden Ring, of course, is essentially... I did a 3-hour stream with Eldrick Stoneskin and Michael Talks. And basically it turns out that the deep world building of Elden Ring that George did is him just vamping on a lot of the same stuff that's hidden in Ice and Fire, only it's less hidden. It's more out on the front. But it's a lot of related ideas, clearly, with the world tree and the moons and the magic and various things. So we did delve into that. We did a moon lore summit. Me and Michael as well. But we're taking this in a different direction. The main thing that I want to talk about today, and what I want to show you guys, is that the main proof of this is in the characters and the castles. Like, we could talk about moons and Io and Europa, and that's all fun. And we will. And archetypes and all that. And that's fun too. And we will. But the main thing is this. Once you notice that there is a pattern of a sun king with a fiery woman and an icy woman, with those women frequently being moon associated, but also just being generally understood that in Western culture, the sun, the king is the sun king, the queen is associated with the moon, just like with the Dothraki. We'll talk about exceptions to that as well. But look at this pattern, okay? Rhaenys, the warm personality. Visenya, the cold personality, just to speak loosely. Elia of Dorne with the sun symbolism. Lyanna with the blue winter roses. Stannis has Melisandre, his red queen. And then he's got Selyse Florent, who's cold and bitter and has a sigil with a crown of blue flowers. Jon has Ygritte, kissed by fire. And then later Mel, potentially, in a weird magical way, and eventually Dany. But then Jon also has icy women like Val, Alice Karstark, who might have married Jon in a different timeline. And Mel does both. We'll talk about Mel. But Robert has Cersei and Lyanna as a sort of love triangle, although Cersei eventually moves from fire stuff to play Night's Queen stuff, which we'll talk about. Peter, of course, Catelyn is a much warmer person. And then you have Lysa, who's very cold. And then later, we see Sansa in her original role with her more fiery symbolism, but then she becomes Elaine Stone and takes on icy symbolism. We'll get into that as well. Maybe. We'll see. I was proud of this one, Tim. Since we talked about the genders being flipped, if we think about Catelyn, she had her own little love triangle too. She had the hot-blooded Brandon and then cold-blooded Ned, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, she did, yeah.
Yeah. Another sneaky one is Renly with warm summer associated Marjorie, and Loras, who has in his duel with the Mountain, he has blue forget me not flowers, a garland. It's either his cape or the thing on his horse. I forget what, but there's a ton of blue flowers. And even the name of them, Forget Me Not, reminds me of Promise Me Ned. Lyanna saying, "Don't forget my promise, Ned," with the blue flowers. So it's he's the Ice Maiden for Renly. Drogo, I think, has Daenerys. Obviously Drogo's son, Daenerys Moon. I think Miri Mazdur is playing the sort of Ice Queen role because she's right there with all those ceremonies too, affecting Drogo's child and doing all the Witch Queen stuff. Okay, taking the seed and soul of Drogo, kind of like Night's Queen. You know what I mean? Not the seed, but the soul doing the magic possession and all that. And so on and on. Daenerys has Daario and Hizdahr. We'll even talk about Christopher and Asha and Carl. I think Asha is Fire Moon. Carl is Ice Moon. Carl the Maid. That's why he's called the Maid, Moon Maid. This is boy Moon Maid. And then Christopher. Of course, there's many. Tim, one of the things that you're hip to talk about is the fact that it's really only in Western mythology that it is so rigidly sun is man and moon is woman. It's often flipped around. And so let me scroll down to the archetypes here. I think I made my point with with these trios. But basically, it's like if there's two moons, they might have been moons of ice and fire because the series is called A Song of Ice and Fire. And it just seems like the kind of thing George would do. And then this pattern of women, it's like, we see these, moons of ice and fire people attached to these sun people. And it goes on to the castles too. But let's get into this archetype stuff, Tim, because I do think this is interesting. Genders of suns and moons. I made it purple because it's all mixed up. So go ahead and take the lead here. You can work off my notes, but feel free to extemporize because I know you had a lot to say here.
Yeah, so sun, man, moon, woman, predominant in Western mythologies, but far from universal. And yeah, when I first approached this, when I was doing my writing, I was approaching it from the floor with tropes in mind. And I've said many times, tropes are not cliches; they are writing tools. Just like we got to remind D&D, themes are not for book reports. Themes are important, and archetypes are important. All of these things are important. They're all storytelling tools. But sometimes you do find a bit of there is sometimes a formula and a rigidness to it. But George likes to play with that by giving us different characters who represent different aspects. And that's also why he plays around with gender and identity as another big one. So that our characters aren't forming these very rigid roles. He has a very large and diverse cast of characters who can fulfill multiple roles, sometimes at the same time. That's why we can have characters who can represent both the ice and the fire, who can be both the sun and the moon. It's why when we go with Dany, we get our rules of the internet. For everything there is a gender bent version, and so with Dany it becomes sun wife and moon husbands. Like we see this constant back and forth. But the big ones I wanted to did fall on a lot of.
Let me again cut in to harp on what you just said. It makes sense with so many characters. It would be rigid if we did the same thing over and over. So yeah, we've got warm and cold versions of moon people, men and women. And then with the Sun King, you guys know about the Dark Solar King. Like during the long night, the sun is dark. He's either hidden in a cave or he turns dark and wears a black crown. We've seen different versions of this. So like that gives you the warm and the cold sun, who's usually male, but not always. And this way he can sort of keep the same he can keep the astronomy pattern going, but he can flex it to all these different scenes so that it's not robotic and stupid, essentially.
Yeah.
But talk about why, when we see the sun as a man, we tend to interpret the attributes a certain way, right? Like, we want the king to be constant, steadfast. He's got to work tirelessly every day, lots of stamina, like the sun. The king also needs to be fierce, harsh, and blazing, like a warrior king, right?
Yeah. And one of the reasons, like, we look at the sun is seen as a man is because like the moon goes through monthly cycles, whereas the sun rises every day. And yes, this is a period and morning wood metaphor for it, but monthly cycles. It's why George refers to when women go through.
Did you
these
just say
as
morning wood?
morning wood? Yeah, the sun rises the sun rises every morning. It's a morning.
That
That's
wasn't in
why
the
the sun.
outline.
That's why the sun is. It was in my outline. There were. Oh yeah. So another funny thing were some of the things that Dave made me edit out because like the Ice Queen trope, and you're like, I don't think you should say resting bitch face. I'm like, but it's not an insult. It's a real thing.
Oh, I guess that's fair. I called you out a little bit. That's fine. A little behind the scenes there.
But like, yeah, like I said, not wrong. I mean, not wrong.
Well, I guess
But
the moon face is kind of like fixed. You know, it's got one stare basically. That's true. Okay. So let's think about this. So the moon. It can be feminine because the moon, you can perceive it as delicate, particularly when it's a nice crescent. It's got those slender horns, you know. It is gentle and beautiful. It looks beautiful, obviously reflected on the water. And I have a picture of that. Look at that beautiful moon. A proper lady with an air of mysteriousness and an aloof demeanor, frequently garbed in gauzy clouds like a diaphanous gown. You see Martin use that language as well, a veil. Okay. And then, yes, the monthly cycles. And also the moon controls the tides, Tim. And thus you have the water association. And that's the easy one to work with women because of the watery womb, water being a symbol of life, rebirth. All those things can be seen as feminine. So let's flip it around, though, because we could see the sun as a maiden made of light, couldn't we?
yes. So the moon can be considered delicate, gentle, beautiful. That's traits associated with femininity, while the sun can be considered fierce, harsh, and blazing. This is why we tend to see in stories a lot of males will have, like especially superhero stories, you have a lot of fire-based powers. You have more male characters than female, but that isn't a universal. Obviously, there are times where you can have female fiery characters and male icy characters who bring up concepts of the moon and the sun respectively. It's just that, as we said, it just in classical Western mythology, the male sun, female moon had been the, just on pure numbers, is the one that came up the most. But we always can, for every example we have, like we always can look and be like, but there are exceptions to the rules.
And so, of course, the most famous flip in the story is probably the maiden made of light, as well as the fact it's a little more under the radar, but in Dorne, the sun symbolism comes from the Rhoynar and is attached to Nymeria, not House Martell. It is the Rhoynish sun. That was their symbol first, and it is Nymeria who sits in the sun throne. So she is the solar queen in that archetypal setup. But the Maiden Made of Light, of course, is based on a Japanese sun goddess named Amaterasu. And so that now we're seeing the attributes of the sun as warm and light-giving, nurturing, like a big hug, you know. And a mother sun does sound nicer, kind of, than the angry male sun. So we're seeing it in a more compassionate way. And this might even create a stronger tie to the idea of nurturing nature, the sunlight making everything grow. You can sort of see that in a Fisher King way if you're talking about a male solar king. You know, the king's, his good rulership makes the land prosper. But, you know, it's a more direct sort of a nature idea. If the sun is female, she's literally causing nature to grow, you know. But anyway, anytime you're imposing gender on, moons and stars and things, it's obviously just a metaphor, so it's subjective. And then Moon Boy in Ice and Fire, of course, just to name male moon characters. There's Moon Boy, there's Walton Stark, the Moon King, and I looked up his name, Tim. Walton means walled town, and a walled is a forest. So tree town.
Mm.
Treetown Stark, the Moon King.
And
Pretty
then,
cool
of course,
name.
Winterfell is also a walled town. People, and it is why the people living outside Winterfell have come into Winterfell during the winters to live within the walls of Winterfell in the Winter City.
And it is a tree town. It's built around the Godswood. It started with as a child of the forest, sacred location that then Bran the Builder was invited to build a castle at. And of course, there's all the language about Bran seeing the castle like a stone tree and climbing the towers like trees, etc., etc. So yes, it is a tree town and a walled town. And also, like Wall Town, you think of the Starks building the wall, obviously, because a lot of those names are hinting at the archetypal Stark nature. Ice Eyes, Snowbeard, on and on and on. So Walton, another one. The Moon King. So the horned god is solar, but he's kind of a unity symbol. His horns are lunar, and he hangs out at night, and he loves the triple goddess. So there's like kind of a little bit of he's a solar deity, but he's expressing like he's crowned by the moon's glory, if you want to say. And we're going to see that with some of these archetypal characters. Because Tim, the sun, I don't know if you heard this, but the moon wandered too close to the sun. And so when it did that, it created an eclipse alignment. And this is they're having sex with each other in the sky. The moon drinks the fire of the sun, and then it has moon meteor children that have the fire from dad, and they've got the moon rock from mom, and they're a little bit of both. But that eclipse alignment is its own character sometimes. So a lot of times the moon characters, Tim, the fire moon characters, will basically depict that moment of the moon being filled with fire and exploding. And Melisandre is a great example of that, okay? She's a fire moon character, and what is the most famous thing she does? She makes the shadow babies. Black shadows. Those are great metaphors for the black meteors that brought shadow to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she is this moon character, and when she has the shadow babies, she lights up. She glows and gives off light and heat, and then she births the shadows. So that's exactly like a picture of the moon being filled with the fire of the sun and then giving off the shadow meteors.
Yeah. Another one was brought up, we were talking the Lion of the Night. So during a solar eclipse, when the moon wanders in front of the sun, because the moon is smaller than the sun, we still partially see the sun's rays. So it looks like a black face on the sun. And this could look like a black lion with a white mane around it, which is the Lion of Night. And this is the inverted colors of what would really be the dominant lion in real life. Something I said, it's one of the complaints I have towards Disney movies is Scar should have been the dominant lion, because the darker the lion's mane, actually the more dominant they are. And this is inverted colors. This is a black-faced lion with a white mane, but in reality, lions would have more of a paler face, but the dark mane would make them the king. And this is more Solar King symbolism, and it's also why like the white lion also comes up in A Song of Ice and Fire. Dany has that white lion pelt, and then Makoro, him being as dark as he is with his
the white hair,
long white hair is like a white mane. He is the Lion of Night.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning Makoro. I had forgotten about that. He is exactly an eclipse face. This one has color. There's different atmospheric conditions, but you guys probably can, if it's a perfect on alignment eclipse, you get the white sort of rays around the edge. And I don't have that picture on my hard drive, but you can see how this looks like a black lion, kind of. And that's part of the idea of the Lion of Night. So basically, yeah, what you see this template here, we can see the moon or the sun as male or female. And then further, like we said, we've broadened out the archetypes to make them more flexible. So the fire moon people, they have that more active solar qualities conferred onto them. They're fiery, they're maybe more sexually active, more emotional, more social, all those kinds of things. And whereas your ice people are just what you'd think. They're more withdrawn. They're aloof. They're mysterious. They're very likely into witchcraft. And they have monstrous children, as we'll talk about. But sticking with the character stuff, it's just what you'd think. Dany and Melisandre, they're fiery people. They're full of fire symbolism, and they're fiery people. So is Ygritte. She's full of piss and vinegar. That's what I would say about her. And Visenya is like your quintessential Ice Moon Queen. So, and I do want to say, my plan, Tim, is to go through this outline and then pull open the World of Ice and Fire and pick through the Conquest. The Conquest is really the best example of all of this stuff. So I think it'll be the most fun if we just read through it and like, not the whole thing, but sort of skim through it. I looked at it last night. I think it'll work. So we're going to get into the symbolism of the Conquest in the second half of the stream. And we're also going to give some t-shirts away at some breakpoint coming up soon, because it's been a minute. But we got that ready to go. So let's see here. I said we said this. Bright and dark sun. Said all that. Okay, so one of the things, another thing that I recognized when I was just first considering the idea of moons of ice and fire is like, it seems like there's also a pattern with the temples. And King's Landing is the great example. King's Landing has 3 hills, right? Aegon's High Hill is for the Solar King. And we got Visenya's Hill with a white temple. Seems like that might be the ice hill. And then we've got the Hill of Rhaenys with the Dragon Pit. The Dragon Pit is a dome made of stone, like a stone egg that used to be the home of dragons. And it cracked open when dragons tried to hatch out of it at the storming of the Dragon Pit, which seems like a perfect analogy for what happened to this first moon way back in the day. So that's really like, once you start looking at King's Landing and the sisters and all the symbolism that flows from the 2 sisters, it gets very hard to deny or to see anything else, I will say, other than moons of ice and fire.
Yeah, and that's because like George also loves his rule of 3, and that's why we start with like stories of Aegon the Conqueror and his 2 sister wives. It's why I latched so firmly onto the idea of one person in the story having like 2 wife-like figures, or at the very least two lovers, 2 people that are orbiting around them that keeps the symbolism going. Because another thing that George loves to do is, said many times, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. He's constantly pulling the same story and retelling it, but just making certain tweaks so that it's not a complete copy and paste job. And that's why we could start with like Aegon the Conqueror as a first example. He has 2 wives, one's in fire moon, one's in ice moon. One gives birth to a relatively normal kid, the other one has a monster baby. And then it's like, oh, does the ice wife always have the monster baby? Well, no. With Stannis, in his case, his ice moon and fire moon both have monster babies. And then with Rhaegar, his ice moon and his fire moon both have normal, healthy children. So it doesn't always repeat, but what's important is like just how often it keeps happening and the different connections that we can make to show the similarities of like why does this keep happening? Why is this such a reoccurring pattern?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because you wouldn't repeat that if it didn't mean anything. Like one time is for something to happen once. Once is hearsay. 2 is a coincidence. 3 is a pattern. When something happens 3 or more times, a pattern has been established.
Someone commented on one of my recent videos, like, do we have any way of knowing if George really, really does all this? And I was like, my whole YouTube channel? The video you're watching? Like,
I mean, because to be fair, some of the stuff we talked about does require going outside the confines of A Song of Ice and Fire and getting to know George as a person and the things he was doing decades before he started writing A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, we've alluded to stories that he was writing in the 70s because George is also a pack rat. He never gives up a good idea. Even the 5-year gap, which he scrapped, we still see elements of like where he kind of repurposes them.
So listen, when I explain the symbolism of Vhagar in a little bit. And by the way, you can get a Nana Vhagar t-shirt on our bonfire t-shirt at our bonfire I can never fucking say this right. We have a t-shirt store and the link below. Click on. We could sell you shirts if you click. Anyways, one of these days. It is a very nice shirt and it's comfortable. So hopefully you can figure out how to buy it. In any case, I'm going to reference a song for Laia, which is something George wrote in the late 70s, I think. Is that right? Somebody will double check when Song for Laia is written. But the symbolism of Vhagar is based on the Ice Dragon constellation, which used to be the Ice Wagon in A Song for Laia. And that is very important. So George has been developing his mythical astronomy ideas like the whole time, his whole career, long before Ice and Fire. He was 1976, Jesus, before I was born. And I'm old. I'm so much old. I'm like 20 years older than some of the people in the chat. And before I was born, George was doing mythical astronomy. Like, just wait till we get there. I want to but I want to center this on Nissa Nissa and Night's Queen, because this is the easiest way to see how it all works together. The Conquest is the most detailed extension of the pattern, but this is where it starts, okay? And both of these artworks are from Atlantis Morissette, so shout out. And on our left is Nissa Nissa, Lady of Sorrows, and on our right, obviously, is Night's Queen. So, moons and meteors. In the Secret Story video and in other videos, I have established that Nissa Nissa's fiery death is tied to the cracking of this moon. That's the same one that created the dragons. These are the moon meteor dragons. All of this is fiery stuff. The moon drinks the fire of the sun. The dragons are fiery. Azor High, warrior fire, forging Lightbringer, a flaming sword. There's no ice here, okay? All fire. And this is the myth that's attached to Nissa Nissa. And then we see Dany mimicking all of this when she hatches her dragons. Dany, similarly, fire associated, hatching the fiery dragons. With Drogo, a fiery sun king, it's all fire. Literally a giant bonfire, okay? But the legend says one day the other moon will kiss the sun too, and then it will crack and the dragons will return. So that line, the other moon, is always like, once you're thinking ice and fire moons, it's like, oh, the other moon. You mean the ice moon? That's the one that's still up in the sky that might crack one day, okay? Now let's look at, basically the others have this entire pattern, the same pattern as Nissa Nissa and the dragons we find with Night's Queen and the others, Tim. So Night's Queen is, of course, as pale as the moon, and she's icy cold. She's got blue star eyes, and she's the mother of the others. The others themselves, they have tons of meteor symbolism. Their eyes are like blue stars, like a falling blue meteor, and their ice swords are essentially the same symbol as a Valyrian steel sword. It's the white, ice sword instead of a black meteor sword, but they're both falling star sword symbols. So Night's Queen, a moon character, is the mother of the others who are like blue meteors. Nissa Nissa is tied to the moon that is the mother of dragons, and Dany mimics Nissa Nissa, becoming the mother of dragons. So you can see that dragons come from the moon or from moon characters, and the others also come from moon characters and look like moon meteors. So it's basically perfectly parallel. And even all the parallels between Dawn and the swords of the others, alive with light, alive with moonlight, pale sword, pale sword. Dawn is a white meteor sword. So that further gives you white meteor symbolism for the others to match all the dragon stuff. So it seems like not only do we have two moons, we've got two kinds of meteors. So if there is a meteor apocalypse in the Winds of Winter, it should be the other moon. And I think it'll be more of an emphasis on the invasion of the others and the snowstorm and all that stuff. So, like the meteor might hit the wall. So instead of a fiery apocalypse, it'll be more like an ice apocalypse.
Yeah. And then, so going on that example, that also applies to actual sword making. So we know that the other swords can shatter regular steel swords, not Valyrian steel, but regular steel. And this is real. This occurs in when actual sword smelting. When you're forging a sword, certain metals, when you take them and you take them from extreme heat and immediately place them in extreme cold, you can cause that will cause them to become brittle and crack. Now, this actually applies to Stannis on a symbolic sense too, because he goes from Dragonstone, which is associate. We get that line about how Stannis is iron; he'll break before he bends. And Stannis goes from being the Prince of Dragonstone, which is a volcano, and now he's at the Wall. He's been taken from a very, very fiery place and transplanted into a very, very icy place. Now, if Stannis is to fall, because let's be real, Stannis ain't going to sit the throne at the end. If Stannis' downfall is to come into the north, it could be a metaphorical reasoning of, well, he, because of his transfer from very, very hot to very, very cold too fast. Mute it.
Kind of reminds me of the last hero going north and having his sword break from the cold. Stannis seems like that first attempt that fails, kind of an Azor Ahai dude. Yeah, that tracks. That tracks. And of course, his sword isn't Valyrian steel, so it might actually break too. We could see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, Wendy Darling with the Nissa Nissa. Corpse Queen here is... who is this? El-Ann. Yes, El-Ann. That is her Knight's Queen.
I also just want to point out, chat brought up that Daemon is the Lion of Night and he has eclipsed the sun on my chest.
Oh, well, that's a great point. So there's a reason why George names the black cat that lives in the Red Keep Balerion, because it ties the black dragon archetype to the idea of a black cat. So basically, the black cat is the dark sun, and the black dragon are these moon meteors that drank the fire of the sun. They are the sun's children. So it's very closely related archetype. Black dragon, black cat. These are the rulers of the long night. They are the fiery people that have turned dark, essentially. Yeah. So
look at you, Daemon, contributing to the discussion.
Yeah, good job, Daemon. Oh, perfect name too. See, it all works. Okay, so yeah, Nissa Nissa and Night's Queen. Now, we mentioned the Solar King can go the other way as well. I think we pretty much cut. Well, the thing I wanted to mention is that there's a couple different kinds of Solar Kings. There's the Green Man Solar King, who puts the emphasis on like pure summer. Colors are green and gold, very much associated with the king that nurtures the land, the Fisher King idea. You know, just like the sun making nature grow, the good king nurtures his kingdom. That's your Green Man King. There is also this sort of Fire King that's like the Azor Ahai warrior of fire archetype. And this person seems to be kind of in the middle. He's frequently setting fire to everything and turning into an evil dude. It seems like the transition point almost between this like bright Sun King and the Night King, Bloodstone Emperor figure. So, and then we've also got this Night's Watch, Sword of the Morning, Last Hero person who has all this light-bringing symbolism. And they're kind of like a resurrected sun figure, Tim. That's kind of how they strike me. It's like the sun that got beat up and then came back around. We see that in the Dance with the Dragons with King Aegon, right? He gets burned in the big, mythical astronomy dragon fight. Then he goes into hiding. He's burned and he hides in the litter. So he's literally covered for like a year, and he drinks milk of the poppy. So his consciousness is hidden. Everything is hidden. And the ruler is Aemond One Eye, who's obvious Night's King figure with his blue star eye, his midnight black everything. And then he's riding Vhagar, the ice dragon. And so then at the very end, what happens? Aegon comes back. He recovers his golden dragon, and he comes back and he sits on the throne. So that's like the return of the sun.
Mm-hmm. And then another inverse with our sun and moon here would actually be Aemond One Eye's relations with Alice Rivers. Now, I don't know if this is going to apply to House of the Dragon, because I don't know how House of the Dragon is going to take Alice's character, considering the whole Daemon Harrenhal storyline. But if we restrict ourselves solely to fire and blood, That Aemond One Eye Alice Rivers relationship, that is like the worst of both worlds, because we have our Ice King figure with Aemond One Eye, and then Alice Rivers is like our dark sun woman, because she has the black hair and the green eyes. She's a woods witch. She's associated with green magic, green seer magic. Usually, a green sea. When you think of green magic and any kind of plant-based magic, that usually is associated with the sun. The sun is needed to.
No, I got to stop. The Night's Queen figures all have weirwood stuff too, and I'm pretty sure Alice Rivers would be a Night's Queen. Because all the Night's Queen figures have variations on that name. Lyanna, Alice, Alysanne, those are all Night's Queen figures. And if you think about it, like your other Night's Queen figures are Val with the weirwood brooch, Morna White Mask, Lyanna, who dresses up as the Weirwood Knight. So it's actually all through the Knights. Alice Karstark at her wedding, she's Winter's Maiden. She's a Stark.
Yeah, but Alice also has fire to her, so she's another one of these characters who, depending on the situation, can play both, because she also, as Aemon says, she sees things in the flames during the nights when they cook their dinners.
Usually when it's a witch, it's going to be the Night's Queen figure, almost always. Sometimes the fire and ice will get flipped, but I think if we see a witch and we see the witch taking seed and soul of Night's King, which she does, Aemond, Night's King, gives her his seed and soul, she rules him and then has his dragon baby. So that's all Night's King and Queen stuff, I would say.
I see your point, but I see it. I see it going both ways. I think Alice is like a ambidextrous in that sense.
Well, there are many women that do that. So you just have to look closer at the thing, and maybe there's some of that. But yeah, I would definitely see her as a Night's Queen figure, and almost always the Night's King figures are coupling with Night's Queen. You never see Night's King and Nissa Nissa. I don't see it anyways. It's always the Solar King has to turn into Night's King in order to couple with Night's Queen. It just has, that seems to be part of the pattern. I think Harrenhal is also a perfect parallel to the Night Fort, as Michael Talks pointed out, which strengthens it further. And they wait for a fortnight for Aemond and Alice to appear, and then they appear. So it would be Daemon and like Nettles, who would be the Azor Nissa Nissa. Like he sends her away, and then he carves up the tree, and they have the tearful goodbye. Nettles then turns into she leads the Burn Men, which are kind of like Night's Watch, Burn Men, fire zombies. Anyways, yes, that is another one. And that whole fight with Vhagar and Daemon and Aemond and Caraxes over the God's Eye is basically an ice and fire dragon fight. Have you gotten into that one before, Tim?
When Vhagar is the moon and they come crashing down to Earth.
Yeah, it's it seems like the two moons kind of smashing together in a way.
The battle at Rook's Rest, right, against Rhaenys?
No, I was talking about the one over the God's Eye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because basically, if you got we should get into the Vhagar thing in a minute, but basically you've got Night's King Aemond, who is again appearing after a fortnight with his midnight black armor and his blue star eye and his witch queen, and then they take to the air, and then you've got Caraxes the bloodworm and Daemon with Dark Sister. Dark Sister would be a reference to the moon that's gone. She's been turned dark. Okay, the two moons are sisters. It's the dark one. She's gone. And so he basically then, there's a double eye stabbing. He takes a moon meteor sword and stabs it into Aemon's eye, and then all the dragons fall into the God's Eye Lake and stab the eye lake in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
How will the Lannisters pay their debts in the Winds of Winter? We're going to do a whole series of Winds of Winter videos. When they announce Winds of Winter, that seems like the time. I've done 2 different runs of Winds of Winter predictions, thinking that maybe I could get the book to pop loose, but it's never happened.
I'm waiting for George to go to these cons that he has set up later in the month and just see what happens.
I'm out of the business of getting my hopes up.
Yeah. It hurts too much.
Okay, and so the hallmarks of the Night King figure are just what you'd think. He represents a dark sun. So we talked about the dark crown. The black cape is a big one too, though. Waymar's got the sable cloak, very prominent in the prologue. He gets 1 blue star eye. That's kind of the big thing. The people that have 1 blue eye, those are Night's King figures. So Euron, Waymar, and Aemond One Eye. Because that is, of course, the one eye symbolism of Odin. That means the person's a wizard in some sort of metaphorical sense. And so, yeah, Waymar's got the sable cloak. Aemond has midnight black armor and cloak. And Euron has the black cloak from Baelor Blacktide, which gives it like extra darkness.
Yeah, which he obtained after drowning him.
He drowned him and cut him into 7 pieces and gave him to the Green Lands, which is like putting a black tide onto the Green Lands. So it's just a whole flood, a flood symbolism. Thank you, Dana. Appreciate you. And so, yeah, black cloak, because, yeah, it hides, it's the black cloak of smoke that's hiding the sky. Euron's sail is midnight black as well. His ship is blood red, and the sail is black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct. So Euron's symbolism is almost like redundant with all that. And so, yeah, that is all hiding the sun's face. The Bloodstone Emperor caused the maiden made of light to hide her face. Then he worshipped a black meteor. And Euron has a moon face. And what is he doing? He's drowning it in shade of the evening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Euron. And then I was thinking of Jon, because Jon he still has both of his eyes, and they're gray eyes of House Stark, but he does have the scar over the one side because of Burrell's eagle. And we talked about, but if Jon is otherized for a moment, if he's just briefly otherized as a Night's King, will his eye turn blue? And then there's always the idea that when Jon is resurrected, that maybe his hair is going to turn white like a Targaryen. Is it possible that his gray eyes will turn blue? George does play a lot with eye colors changing between gray and blue and green. We see that with House Farwind. With Val's eyes are sometimes described as icy blue and other times at gray, depending on how the light falls on them.
Yeah, it's the language around the eyes of Beric and Cat are both ambiguous. It could be read as they are glowing red, or it could be read that they're like red wounds, and that George is talking about the eye socket being red. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's easy to imagine that somebody resurrected by R'hllor should have a fiery glint in their eye, since the others have the glowing blue star eyes. Melisandre's eyes tend to glow. Her ruby's like a third eye that glows. Ghost's eyes, similarly, they're like 2 red suns and things like that. And so basically, what were you saying? Oh, Jon. Jon's hair is going to be white because he's going to have gone through so much, Tim. It's going to be frozen and then heated up. It's like food when you refrigerate it and microwave it, refrigerate it and microwave it. It's it just gets worked after a minute, right?
Jon's just going to go Super Saiyan. It's a classic trope.
It's going to be I'm tired. That's what it's going to be, is tired. Okay, so let's go back to... Oh, yeah, the places. Just to run through the places real quick. I mentioned King's Landing as this map. But think about Fire Moon places. They should mimic the Fire Moon, which means they should be exploded places that used to be the home of dragons. Let me find a good... Oh, this is from Dune, by the way. If you remember Paul Muad'Dib, the name Muad'Dib is the shadow on the second moon. So Paul, the chosen one, is named after the second moon, the shadow on the second moon. So just yet another place that George may have gone fishing for this stuff. Yeah, we'll leave this up for a second. Okay, so the fire moon places are places that are home of dragons because the fire moon exploded and gave birth to 1,000 dragons. So the dragon pit, as I mentioned, it's a dome cracked open by dragons from the inside. It's very like an egg. Valeria, former home of dragons. It blew up. It rained down dragon glass and black blood of demons and dead dragons. All of those things are moon meteor metaphors. Dragon glass, so black knives that catch on fire. The black blood of demons, think of bleeding stars from black meteors. Azor Ahai as like a Balrog demon. And then dead dragons, and that's what the meteors are, basically, dead dragons. So Valeria is a perfect one. Ashai, similarly, used to be a home of dragons. Seems like something bad happened there. It's all black stone now. Dragonstone, it hasn't blown up per se, but it is a volcano. So it is filled with fire. So this is kind of like the fire moon in its moment of kissing the sun, being filled with fire, and it's about to blow up. And so what is Dragonstone? It's a bunch of black stone dragons that are all clinging to the castle, ready to wake. They're threatening to wake up. When Dany was born, there was a storm that ripped off some of the gargoyles. So some of those stone dragons exploded from Dragonstone then. So symbolism.
Yeah, Dragonstone seems like a place that's just waiting to have its Pompeii moment.
Well, and it also launches invasions of Westeros. The dragons invade Westeros from Dragonstone. So when the three conquerors go from Dragonstone and land on Westeros, that is like the fire moon coughing up 3 dragon meteors that then land on the planet. And it'll happen again when Dany gets there and then invades Westeros from Dragonstone. Stannis did it too. And then they land at King's Landing.
Yeah, these are all symbolic eruptions.
We go from the fire moon of Dragonstone and we land at King's Landing, and now we're invading the world with dragons and setting fields on fire. So, Casterly Rock is similar to Dragonstone. It's a big rock and it's injected with fire. It's the gold this time, but it's the same thing. Veins of molten gold injected into the rock. And so this is why we have what seems like sun symbolism for the Lannisters, but it's actually mostly fire moon symbolism. It could go either way, but it's mostly that.
Yeah, and then in House of the Dragon, Jason Lannister, when he's trying to woo Rhaenyra, he does mention that Casterly Rock could support a dragon pit. He has the money and it has the space that he could build one for her.
They're always trying to get dragons. They're trying to get Rhaenys dragon's eggs. There's all the Fafnir symbolism, Tyrion. Yeah. The Lannisters trying to marry into the Targaryens. So that's why. Dorne. Many places in Dorne, but like the Hellholt, Sunspear. The Sunspear is like a moon meteor. The Hellholt is where Meraxes the dragon fell from the sky like the moon, was slain with Rhaenys, the fire moon character. So Dorne. The Weirwood tree itself is just like Melisandre. It's the moon that just swallowed some fire and it's burning and it hasn't blown up yet. It's just on fire eternally. And then so ice moon places, they're unblemished ice temples, Tim, that have explosive potential, or they've got frozen fiery things inside them. So Sept of Baelor, all the Faith of the Seven stuff is icy symbolism. All those crystals and things, that's just works for ice crystal. We see the same rainbow prism language applied to the wall as we do all the Faith of the Seven stuff. I really like his Weirwood staff with the crystal orb. That's the ice moon on the world tree. Very nice symbol. And they've got all the sevens. The warrior's sons are mimicking the others, Tim. I think I have a picture of them. I do. Where are they? Come forth, warrior sons. No, those are the others. I mean the Kingsguard. Same thing. So yeah, you can see the High Septon with his ice moon crown. The warrior sons, their sigil is a rainbow or a crystal sword. It's described as both on a field of black. So that's the crystal ice swords of the others on a midnight field. That's when they come out, Tim. Mm-hmm. And their armor is mirror-like, just as the others' armor is reflective. So all that Faith of the Seven is icy, and that's the Sept of Baelor. And then what happens at the Sept of Baelor, Tim? They imprison fiery moon things like Cersei.
And they behead Ned Stark.
Behead Ned Stark. All the burned Targaryen dragons are interred in the Sept of Baelor.
And I like that symbolism because it also shows that, like, just because a place is icy does not mean that dragons won't be found there. I mean,
the dragons are frequently buried in the ice, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because there are symbolic dragons at the Sept of Baelor, but they are the remains of Targaryens.
Think about Jon Snow. He is a hidden dragon under the name Snow, hidden in the north. Same idea. Cersei is a piece of fire moon. She gets imprisoned in the icy Sept of Baelor. What do? They cut off her golden hair. She lost her fire. She's frozen now. And she lost her political power, too. She lost her glory. Everyone can see that her teeth sag, and now she's not beautiful anymore. And who cares about her? Sorry. It's just, walk of shame. It's the whole thing there. So she's lost her fire, lost her power, lost her glory. And it's a similar thing. There's other examples of it, too. Kettle Black. He's a black meteor imprisoned in the icy sept. And yeah, goes on and on. So then a White Sword Tower. What do we have inside the White Sword Tower? Everything is white except for Oathkeeper, which Jaime pulls out from under a black oak chair. So it's black chair, black sword, hidden in the middle of this white tower. In the Vale, we have the Eyrie Ice Temple. We have a giant frozen mountain. But what's under all that ice? It's a dark stone mountain, the Giant's Lance. So that's like a dark meteor embedded in the ice. Again.
And again, with House of the Dragon, because they are... I mean, this is one of the toxic butterflies, but them playing with the lore. Sheep Stealer is in the Vale. And again, but if we go to Fire and Blood, and where we still have Nettles in the story we want, they will spend time in the Vale. Sheep Stealer will be in the Mountains of the Moon, which is more of an icy mountain range, but it will cause an effect on the wildling clans there, where we get the burned men who live in the Mountain of the Moon and are paying homage to a fire witch who more than likely was Nettles and Sheep Stealer.
Yep. And that's like Sansa going to the Vale. As she dyes her hair is not kissed by fire, but it's auburn, which is close. And she hides it. She turns it brown, and she turns into a stone. Like, think about this. The Purple Wedding, Joffrey is a solar figure who gets choked, and his face turns dark and purple. So that's the long night happening. And Sansa is the Fire Moon Maiden. Remember the vision, Tim, of Sansa at the Red Wedding. How did the Ghost of Highheart see her?
With the snakes in her hair.
Purple serpents dripping venom. Yeah. And that is a metaphor for the poison, the Strangler, which is made from a dark purple crystal from a shy. So Sansa has a hairnet of silver, which is like Indra's net. So this is the starry net of the universe. And the old lady, the crone, pulls out basically a black star, a black amethyst it's called, from a shy out of her hair, out of her moon hair, which is metaphorically a serpent, and it's poisonous. So this is just the moon giving off a poisonous dragon meteor, and it bites the sun, and the sun chokes and turns dark. Then Sansa Nissa Nissa flees from the scene like a meteor. She explodes away, flies away, turns into a stone, Elaine's stone, dyes her fiery hair dark, and then lands in the Vale. Smack. And so basically what this pattern is, Tim, I figured out is like if one moon blew up, some of the shrapnel would hit the other moon. Simple as that. And so when the fire moon blows up, some of it lands on Earth and some of it lands in the ice moon. And that's why all the ice moons have this frozen fiery thing inside of them. Again, like Jon Snow, buried in the north, buried at Winterfell. Look at Hardhome. It's got this lurking fiery explosion potential, but it's all frozen and cold.
Yeah.
Winterfell's got the hot blood, the hot springs.
Yeah. And then, of course, there is the theory that what is underneath the ice of the wall is the bedrock actually black stone.
Is it black stone? Right. Or is it an ice dragon? Similar idea. Like, oh, there's a frozen dragon in there. Down and under Winterfell, there might be a dragon heating the springs. Or maybe there's dragon's eggs under there. White Walls. The castle White Walls. What did we have? A dragon's egg right in the middle of it. And a secret dragon who was dyed blue. Same thing with Aegon. He's a secret dragon who's been dyed blue. Hidden in the ice. Just like Jon. It's like same thing over and over and over. What's the name of the blue dragon in the Mystery Knight? Jon the Fiddler. Jon Snow, son of Rhaegar the Harpist. Yeah. Is there any evidence that George is meaning for this all to go together? I don't know. Maybe it's all coincidence. We're pretty far down the road, though. So anyways.
More than 3 times, it's a pattern.
So yeah, the wall is another ice moon symbol. It's it's also got the Black Brothers and the Black Castles that are like buried in there. So pretty sure it's pronounced Trugon. Well, it's all in the accent. So yeah, White Sword Tower, Temple of the Moon Singers is literally an ice moon temple. It's got 2 moon maidens on the front, just to give you the clue of 2 moons. It's got milk glass moon phase windows to tie in the dawn symbolism. Everything is snowy marble, just like at the Eyrie and the Sept of Baelor. The statue of Baelor, Tim, is an ice dragon statue. If we take all the white marble as a symbol of ice, Baelor is a dragon. And that makes sense for Baelor to be the ice dragon because Bael is a Night King name. Peter Baelish, Bael the Bard. And it all comes from Baelor of the Evil Eye from Irish myth, of course. So all the Bael names in Ice and Fire are Night King names. And so Baelor the Blessed has an ice marble statue in front of the ice temple where the warrior sons come out of.
Yeah.
On the hill of Visenya, who's the ice queen.
I also want to point out that having the Moon Singers, because the Moon Singers are also something we hear coming from the culture of the Jogos Nye, which is in the far, far east. These lands once part of the Great Empire of the Dawn. This is another example of something that originates in the Far East, but has now found its way to Westeros. R'hllorism, as it's been encroaching out of Ashai into the Free Cities and now coming into Westeros with Stannis, that is the fire version. But then the Moon Singers being in Westeros is our ice version of something that's from the Far East. It shouldn't belong here, but it's here.
Well, that's a great example because when Nymeria goes to Braavos, the description of the Temple of the Moon Singers is followed immediately by the Temple of R'hllor, or vice versa. They're back to back. So it's very much like Ice Moon Temple, Fire Moon Temple. So, yeah, great stuff with that. Let's do a T-shirt giveaway, Tim. Okay, I'm going to play the music and find the link. And I'll have it organized by the time I get back. So if you need to use the restroom, go ahead. And here we go. All right, so the way that we do this, we do 2 t-shirt drawings. 15 and above patrons are in the first drawing, and $20 and above patrons are in the second drawing. This brought to you by Allegra. And so basically, if you throw down $20 a month or more, you get 2 chances every month to win a shirt, and 15 or more gets 1 chance. So the first, we will do 2 drawings, and the first drawing, which has more people in it, will have 29 folks. And so I can set that right here. 29. And then Maynard Plum has these numbers correlated to the folks, and he will give me the name back after I spin this. So, spin. And Maynard, you can just signal it to me. That'll work. Number 6 is our first winner. And this second, slightly more exclusive drawing will have 14 people. So yeah, I mean, that's a decent chance of winning. 1 out of 14 odds, plus the first one. I don't know. I can't calculate advanced odds like that, but our second lucky number, first one was 6. And the second one is 7. 7 almost won last time. And won this time. Okay, so the first winner is Ian Johnson. And we will reach out to you guys, by the way. We have your email addresses on Patreon. And our second winner, Maynard will give to me in 1 second. There you go, giving away shirts. And you can pick any shirt from our store, one of which is Nan of Aegar. Got a couple Garth shirts, a couple of things. JT Penger. Ian Johnson and JT Penger. And as far as the names we're using whatever name you put on Patreon, which can be a nickname or anything. So if you don't want me to read put whatever name you want me to say on your Patreon. There you go. So let's get back to the presentation. And I think we're ready to read the Conquest, Tim. We'll skim the Conquest, because there's a lot that pops out. We've made all these points, and I could do the bullet points, but really, it's just more poetic to see George's writing and the way that he reels it out. So it's not every single line has double meaning, but a lot of them do. So it's up to us to try to sort of suss that out and see what makes sense. And you guys in the chat can pipe up and give us your 2 cents. But it starts off, Tim, talking about the dating. Okay, it says, true scholars know that actually the date, it started on the coronation of Old Town, and so the Conquest is actually -2 and -1. And the only thing that I found here that was interesting, they talk about the day he landed at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, the 3 hills where King's Landing would rise. They talk about, this line about the Doom. 12 years before the Doom, Aenar Targaryen sold his holdings in the freehold and the lands of the Long Summer, and moved all his wives, wealth, slaves, dragons, siblings, kin, and children to Dragonstone, a bleak island citadel beneath a smoking mountain in the narrow sea. So from the lands of the Long Summer to beneath the bleak mountain. So this sounds kind of like some sort of solar death or transformation along the lines of what we're talking about when the Solar King goes from bright to being dead or buried or hidden, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of that leaving someplace hot for someplace. Now, in this sense, it's not actually cold because it's still Dragonstone, but the symbolism is there. You're leaving somewhere warm and bright for someplace that's more bleak and dark.
It's like the underworld version of the sun. Yeah, exactly. And of course, when Aegon launches his invasion, he's on a black dragon in black armor with a black sword. And even think about this. The Targaryens themselves are colored like the moon. They're pale and mostly silver. They're literally like translucent moon people, but they armor themselves in all this black, and then they go to war. That is the story of the moon. It used to be nice. It used to be chill. And then it got turned into these black meteors that attacked everyone. Oh, and Tim, I'm sorry, real quick. I forgot to show the pictures of Io and Europa. And those are fun. So let me do that. Where did my Photoshop go?
I do also want to point out, like, it also is another aspect of, it's a funny way of looking at our Targaryens' otherworldly aspect as something more than human, because talking as an Irishman, a pasty Irishman who burns very easily, you would think living in Valyria in a temperature, in a climate like that with such fair skin, that they would burn easily, but instead they love the heat and they still remain like unblemished. It just goes to show like more of that otherworldly nature there is to the Valyrians.
Yes, so I apologize for the slightly disjointed nature of this, but let me do this Io and Europa thing really quick before we do the whole conquest, because it's only going to take about 3 minutes. And it's just we kind of already got halfway into it. But basically, the part of the idea with George thinking of this back in the 90s would have been, is he's got this a Song of Ice and Fire. He wants to have the seasons get messed up. So he gets this idea of 2 moons, either from Thundar or Dune, or one of the many, many, many other fictional stories that have multiple moons. And somehow he gets this idea of 2 moons, okay? Now, the first moons in the entire solar system that were spotted are called the Galilean moons, because Galileo spotted them in 1610 with one of the first telescopes. And those are Io, Europa, Callisto, and Ganymede. Now, Io and Europa happen to be archetypal examples of types of moons that exist in the solar system. Io is a big volcano. That yellow that you can see, that's all sulfurous, like sulfur crystallate. It's all volcanic rock. It's mostly basalt, but it's all volcanic. So there's over 400 active volcanoes on Io, Tim. It's the most volcanic thing in the solar system. And the reason is because Earth, by the way, has 60 volcanoes. Io has 400. It's about the size of our moon. It has 4. So the entire surface is constantly changing. Mm-hmm. And basically do you know the reason why Io is volcanic?
No, I don't.
It's the closest moon to Jupiter. So much like, which is the Mars moon? Is it Deimos or Phobos that's closest?
Phobos is the one that's coming close.
So Phobos is literally falling into the planet. What Io is the closest one to Jupiter, and it is being constantly tugged on by the gravity of Jupiter as well as Ganymede and Europa. And so that keeps it's constantly stretching like this. And so it can never cool, and it's constantly in a molten state all the time.
Yeah, see, Phobos is being pulled to the point where it's literally going to be ripped apart.
And so it's just volcanic as hell. One of the biggest volcanoes on there is named Surtur, after the fire giant. And it can fountain lava over 500 kilometers into space, which is insane.
Yeah.
So then on the other hand, we have Europa. And Europa is a standard ice moon. And I have a picture of its insides. So it is going to be a rocky core with a global ocean of what we think is water. Some ice moons have liquid methane. We do think Europa is probably water. I'm not sure if we're certain or almost certain of that, but we haven't actually gone there, obviously. So it's got this, it's like 50 to 80 miles thick, we think, the crust on the ocean is going to be even deeper. And it has cryovolcanoes. Cryovolcanoes work just like regular volcanoes. It's cold water working up through the even colder ice. So the thing erupting is still hotter than the mountain, but it's basically cold water and ice mountains instead of lava and basalt volcanoes. So they're cryovolcanoes. And I just think that's cool because George gives the others that burning aspect. Nothing burns like the cold, burning blue star eyes. you know, they have
Yeah.
that active fire element. So
Yeah. I know more because like Europa is another one of the um, possible candidates if there is to be life anywhere else in our solar system. Obviously, it's not the other planets, but moons become more likely, and Europa is one of the prime candidates because of the liquid water. So even if it's just microbial single cell organism life, the fact that there's water there raises its possibility of bearing life to much higher.
and so yeah, it's basically it's got a, and if you even think about the moon egg idea, like Europa works really well. It's got a icy shell and a water uh, um, the fetus is in a water body inside. What's
The
the
amniotic fluid.
Thank you. Thank you. I was not
Yeah.
sciencing well today.
There's been a lot of babies born in my family recently. You might have
The
heard.
baby's in some water inside
Yeah.
the woman or something. I should stop talking. Somebody give me a science word. Yeah.
We just had to. We just
get
had
the
one
idea.
come out of the tank.
And so this also means if you really want to get technical, planet, you know, if the second moon's going to get cracked open to cause the new long night, clever people have pointed out that that would doom the entire planet if it has no moons left. More likely what will happen is if it is an ice moon, it will lose its icy layer and will end up just the rocky core, which would leave us planet Earth with a rocky moon with no magic and no ice and no fire, just stabilizing the planet that doesn't have magic anymore. So this actually fits with the no magic ending. Like, if the fire moon governed fire magic, well, not only did it get burnt and blown up, but pieces of it fell to the earth as the oily black stone, probably. And so we've got like dead fire moon on the earth. And I've even speculated, Tim, that George is drawing from Wheel of Time here. In Wheel of Time, magic is divided into male and female halves. And the male half is tainted since the original disaster because the men went and fought with the Dark Lord. The Dark Lord went crazy and poisoned Sidin, which is the dark half, or the male half, and Hizdahr is the female half, or something like that. So George might be doing something like that, where fire magic is shadowed because of this fire moon disaster. Because look at the Relorists. They're making shadows and stuff. It's a shy by the shadow versus the heart of winter. Why isn't it the heart of summer? It's the heart of shadow instead. You feel me?
Yeah, I was thinking more, I guess, because more in Tolkien. So we got Mordor, and Mordor has the Valley of Shadows, and then George has his own version of the Vale of Shadows, and of course there's like the Plains of Gorgoroth. But Mordor is very dark, but also volcanic.
So you're gonna love this. Minus Ithil. Somebody look this up so I don't waste time. Somebody look up the description of Minus Ithil. Basically, it is the oily black stone. It drinks the light, but it was originally created as the shining city. I think Minus Ithil became Minus Morgul. I think the name changed when it was warped by the Dark Lord. But that is essentially a moon city that went from bright to like drinking the light. And it's a big inspiration for what Martin is doing with these moons and the oily stone. So yeah, I should have grabbed that ahead of time. There's so much. I did the Moons of Ice and Fire series, Tim, is like 5 2-hour podcasts.
No.
Like there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Minus Morgul, Minus Ithil, that is it's all about moonlight that's been poisoned and stuff. So that's kind of what we're talking about here with the fire moon. It is associated with shadow, with these dark meteors, with this dark dragony stuff. And then also interestingly, Io, and you can see this is Io in the background here, erupting next to Jupiter. That's kind of cool that they did that. Even though Io looks yellow here, it's actually one of the least reflective bodies in the solar system because it mostly is actually basalt. Whereas Europa is the brightest moon in the solar system because the ice is like a mirror and it just reflects. Super bright. So just like the others are super bright and all of our Targaryens are wearing dark armor and stuff. Dragonstone, Blackstone, everything. It's kind of mimicking these two moons. So with that said, oh no, where's one more point? George is mentioning the Greek mythology of Io and Europa also in the story. We're not going to go into it real deep, just to keep it moving. But there's a legend of Argoth Stoneskin. He won the tourney at Highgarden and was supposed to marry Maris the Most Fair, but Uthor of the High Tower stole his bride. And so Argoth Stoneskin is raging outside the castle. This is adapted from Hermes and Argoth and Io. Io is a goddess that turns into a cow that Zeus is trying to seduce. Argoth Panoptes of the many eyes is the guardian, and Hermes slays him and steals the cow. And that's what George is riffing off with Argoth Stoneskin. So that means that, yes, George knows the mythology of Io, and that is a clue to think about Io, the real moon. Similarly, Europa means wide or broad face. It is meant to evoke a cow and also the wide face of the moon. So that's Europa. And, of course, Euron has a pale moon face. Euron, Europa.
Yeah.
Not named after urine. It's after Europa. Although Euron does talk about, chamber pots and things.
The P jokes are more to Aegon when he was a frat boy.
True. Well, nothing's ever exclusive. George loves he loves the confluences. But yes, point is, Io and Europa, both mentioned in various places in the lore and the world building, and that's to get us to think about these ice and fire moons. So I hope you believe the premise for this theory. And with that said, back to the Conquest and our ice and fire moon queens. So we're on Dragonstone, and they're talking about at its apex Valyria, greatest city, shining walls, so more lands of the long summer stuff. And the Targaryens were not the most powerful, as we know. Dany's the dreamer, had the dream. And they moved to Blackwater Bay. The name Blackwater is about the God's Eye. So, remember the eclipse alignment, Tim, right? The moon wanders too close to the sun. That creates the eclipse alignment. The God's Eye Lake is a model of that. Okay, the Isle of Faces is like the moon. The moon has a face, Isle of Faces. What's on the Isle of Faces? White trees with faces. And of course, weirwoods are compared to the white of the moon. So Moon Door is weirwood. Blackgate weirwood door glows like milk in moonlight. So the Isle of Faces is the moon. And that is like the pupil. Mm-hmm. And then around it is the corona of the lake. And that makes the eye. But George loves to describe the lake as being on fire. When Gregor and Amory Lorch are burning the Riverlands, it says the God's Eye is a flame from, Harrenhal to the Blackwater, or the Riverlands is a flame from the God's Eye to the some. And then the sun glints off the surface of the lake like a fiery sheet of copper one time. There's a few different quotes that make the lake a lake of fire. And so you have a fiery lake and a moon eye, and that is the eclipse. And that's why George loves to stab it with dragons, because it's the moon wandered too close to the sun, made the eclipse, and then the comet smashed into it, and that's when the dragons woke. And so we get Caraxes dive bombing into Daemon and into Vhagar. Remember, what did Caraxes do when he dive bombed Vhagar? He used a trick.
What did he do?
He put the sun at his back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he
made an eclipse.
Aemon's blind spot. Yeah.
He made an eclipse. He positioned himself right in front of the sun, like an eclipse, like the moon, like the fire moon, and then he turned into the fire moon meteor and dive bombed into the ice moon. It's beautiful.
When we get this scene in House of the Dragon, they need to set it up exactly like that.
They better not change a thing, man. They could change anything. They could change anything else.
Mm-hmm. He needs to form an eclipse.
So again, mirrored symbolism. Dark sister the sword, the black sword, is like the meteor. It's jammed into the blue eye of Aemond One Eye. Then they stab the lake, which is like a big blue eye also, if the water's blue. Yeah. It can go either way, but at that moment it's blue. Yeah. So
and there's some eye of Sauron stuff there, because if the lake is an eye and it's on fire, and in the pupil are the weirwoods that see everything, the fiery eye that sees all.
That's it. It's beautiful. It's great. And then if you look, and then when it's a blue eye, then you can say, oh, well, the eye of the gods is a blue eye. It's like, yeah, we see that. The old gods are tied to the cold gods. Craster calls them the cold gods. Waymar climbs a tree and prays to the old gods, and the cold gods show up instead. You know, it happens sometimes. So
and then of course, like anytime we talk about the old gods, that always brings up Lovecraft and the deep ones and the old ones, the great old things. And then I've talked about on this before, but Lovecraft's dragons, 2 of his dragons actually come from icy places, not fiery places. The Byakhee, cool. Which are the dead dragons, they're the ones that fly through space. So dragons flying through space, we saw that with meteor imagery. And then there are the Night Gaunts. They're the dragon-human hybrids. They roost around Kadath in the cold waste in the Giant's Quarry, where they mine black onyx. So they mine black stone. They roost along the canyon where they mine black stone.
Yeah, it's like if you're really working with dragons, it's like, well, we need different kinds of dragons now. It's kind of like George saying, well, don't give me one moon maiden. Like, I'm going to make 2 at least. So think about this eye stabbing thing, all right? The god's eye is like the sun-moon eclipse alignment, and it gets stabbed by the comet. And so we see a lot of eye stabbing during the sun-moon symbolism fights. A famous one would be Meraxes getting the scorpion bolt in the eye and then falling down out of the sky at the Hellholt. So, because remember, one of the things about when the meteor lands on Earth is it sets the tree on fire. Just like the Grey King, Storm God's Thunderbolt, it sets the tree ablaze. That's a weirwood metaphor. And the weirwood is also like that mushroom cloud that rises from the site of the impact. That's the whole burning tree thing. And so we always see the tree. For example, when all the dragons hit the lake, there's a splash. The splash of water is as high as King's Pyre Tower. So even though they're landing in the water, George has still created a smoky pyre, a huge mushroom cloud. It's just made out of water, but it's as high as King's Pyre Tower. So when Meraxes falls, that's at the Hellholt. Holt is a wood. Hellholt, burning wood, burning tree.
And of course, the overarching story of that, and what the comment that I left that got that and maybe even contacting the first place was, this is the moon wandering too close to the sun, because even though it's the Hellholt, it's still subject to the Martell is that sun spear. The moon wandered too close to the sun and it cracked. Meraxes and Rhaenys are shot down at the Hellholt. They're shot down at Dorne.
With a spear, basically.
With a spear. Yeah. And essentially it cracks. It's shot through the eye. So this is like some skull cracking stuff. And then it falls to earth. And then it's left ambiguous what exactly happened to Rhaenys. Did she die in the fall? Did she bury underneath? But definitely broke some bones. So there's just like this earth-shattering, bone-cracking thing that's happening. No matter how you look at it, it's like they split, they burst apart when they hit the ground.
And remember, Nissa Nissa dies when the moon dies. So the death of this magical woman at the fall of the long night is very important. So it's not just the dragon falling out of the sky. It's, what happened to Rhaenys? What happened to Nissa Nissa? Is she in a dungeon? Is she captive somewhere? Does she need rescuing? Like, we see these ideas suggested a lot. So, so then the other thing about the eye and the god's eye thing that's really cool is that it ties in this Odin magician idea. Odin the magician loses his eye to gain magic power. Azor Ahai, when he cracks the moon, when he stabs the god's eye in the sky, he's doing it to gain magical power and enter the weirwood net to become a tree wizard like Odin. So the eye replacement metaphor is extended from the wizard into the celestial cataclysm. And that is like, that's the God tier writing right there. And so go back to the Night Fort, the Weirwood tree trying to pull the moon eye down into the well. It's the same thing. It's the dark wizard plucking an eye to gain power, but also plucking the moon out of the sky and causing the long night. So he returns to the same set of ideas over and over for this disaster because it's linked to multiple things. The wizard transforming himself and this spearing of the thing. Serwyn of the Mirror Shield. You want to take a stab at that one? The dragon Urax is approaching Serwyn of the Mirror Shield. And Serwyn shows the dragon his own face in his mirror shield and slays the dragon.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you want to go with this.
I'm just saying, it's more like the dragon is flying. Like, what's the mirror shield? Well, the Serwyn is supposedly a Kingsguard, so he's a snowy white dude with a mirror shield. Just like I said, Europa is highly reflective and luminous. And so the dragon Urax is approaching and sees his own reflection in the moon. So this sounds like a comet moon type of thing. And then one slays the other. So I think this is like the final moon disaster. But it's some sort of dragon moon astronomy collision. So that's really all my point is. And then we see that repeated at the storming of the dragon pit. Where we do the same thing again.
Yeah.
So that was the God's Eye. We'll come back to the God's Eye. Blackwater Rush. That's where I got off on. So the God's Eye is the explosion, the moon explosion. So what comes out of the moon explosion? It's like waves of night and blood. That is the symbol that George uses many versions of. Waves of darkness, waves of bleeding stars. It's a flood of bleeding stars. So it's a bloody flood or flood of darkness, the black tide. So all these complementary symbols, like Oathkeeper. When you look inside of the waves, the Valyrian steel ripples in Oathkeeper, waves of night and blood crashing on a steely shore. You go to Euron, same thing. He's got the blood eye, or it's a black. Sometimes the black eye, sometimes the blood eye is black. He's got a black patch. Sometimes it's a red patch. His ship is blood red with midnight black sail. So it's waves of blood and darkness. That is the language of the apocalypse. All right. And so from the God's Eye comes the Blackwater Rush. It's a tide of darkness. And it ends at King's Landing. Okay. So Dragonstone, the island in the middle of the Blackwater Bay, it's basically like a dragonstone is the meteor. Literally, they are the stones that are dragons. The moon was an egg. It cracks open. The stone dragons. They're black. Dragonstone is black. And it's floating in the Blackwater Bay. It's like it's in space. It's like a meteor flying through space, waiting to crash. It's about to land.
Yeah. So going back to there was something, because when you brought up Odin's Eye, but then Azor Ahai cracking the moon, that brought me to the idea, though, of sacrifice. And it's like, what do we sacrifice to get these powers? And I've always had this feeling that sacrifice, it depends on the value of a sacrifice, depends on how much meaning it has to the person presenting it, than the actual sort of value. And that's a concept we see played with the Faceless Men, who sometimes they'll accept money to take a hit, but other times they'll take other forms of payment. Odin sacrifices his eye, but that's something that only hurts Odin, whereas Azor Ahai, sacrificing the moon, so to speak, that's sacrificing something that's important to everyone. And it shows the selfishness of what you're willing to throw away to gain power and how much it can harm others. It's one thing to give up one thing that only affects you and is only going to put you at a disadvantage versus something that's going to affect everyone. And that's how I say the different forms of sacrifice that we're seeing play out with characters like Euron and Jon and Dany. Dany gives up something important to her when she burns Khal Drogo, whereas Euron, with his magical maelstrom of blood sacrifice, Euron doesn't care about anything or anyone. So he's looking at value in terms of quantity over quality.
Yeah, yeah. He's trying to gather all the wise, all the religious men and anything he can. Maybe if I married Daenerys, I could sacrifice her because she's the most beautiful woman in the world. Yeah, and so Bloodstone Emperor, he sacrifices Amethyst Empress, and then he worships the meteor. So that's one of the big clues that, like, it could be that this dark wizard, somebody, really did cause the disaster on purpose so that they could bring the fire moon down to Earth and possess it. Like, that might have been the plot. Because that's what he did. He worshipped the black meteor and named himself after the bleeding starstone, Bloodstone Emperor. And then he ruled and was powerful and married Tiger Woman. That's bad. I mean, you gotta bring some A game to marry Tiger Woman. So it seems like, I mean, maybe the disaster happened because of the stars, and then the meteor landed, and then he was like, oh, cool, it has magic power, sweet. But you can certainly assemble the narrative that he did it for that reason.
Yeah. But then you ask, but what did it cost? Everything.
Yeah, well, he destroyed his own empire. He murdered his sister, and then he was ultimately, offed by some guy with a flaming sword, or maybe a woman with a monkey's tail. Who knows? But
yeah.
So getting back to the Conquest, the Gullet. Oh yeah, the Gullet. That's always a good name. Let's see. Yeah, Dragonstone is athwart the Gullet. It has a stranglehold on Blackwater Bay. And then we're talking about the Valerians of Driftmark. After the Doom, House Targaryen looked east, not west. Game the Glorious. And then Aegon is born in 27. And then they're going to get into the personalities. And so to keep the bloodlines pure, he took them both. The personality stuff's coming up in a second. They're all three dragon lords. A common myth claims that Aegon Targaryen had never set foot upon the soil of Westeros until the day he sets out to conquer it, but that's not true. He had the painted table carved and decorated. So this is like Azor Ahai plotting on the Weirwood net here. He's like remaking the world. He's making a voodoo doll of Westeros or something. I don't know what this is about, but it's definitely showing his plan to invade. And that's kind of just what we were talking about. Like, did Bloodstone Emperor plan to do this? Let's see here. Dornishman, Argilac the Arrogant. Black Heron. Where's that Visenya and Rhaenys thing? The hands of the envoy are interesting because Weirwood leaves are bloody hands. So let's see what happened here. Argilac, he lives at Storm's End. He's the Storm King. So he's like a Green Seer king. He cuts off the hands of the envoy. So that's like turning the Weirwoods red, kind of. And then Aegon instead rallies, gets set to invade. On the seventh day, a cloud of ravens burst from the towers of Dragonstone. So that's cool. There's a dark meteor cloud. The ravens are, really good moon meteor symbols. Dark wings, dark words. Mm-hmm. They erupt in clouds. They tend to do that.
It was the first to rally to Aegon's cause after this are Squishers, because it's the Velaryons and the Bar Emmons. Their sigils of fish and seahorses make them fish people.
Yeah, so there's a thing with Celtigar and the Hydra. There's a crab. There's like the Cancer crab. The story of Cancer the crab is tied to the Hydra. So like there's a Greek mythology thing that George is doing with like the little crab ally to the multi-headed dragon. So I don't know where I think all this the symbolism of the Valarians, the seahorse, that's all like dragon in the water stuff. They're dragons who became seafarers. So there's the dragon in the green sea. And that's why they've got green symbolism, and they got a lot of green and silver dragons and stuff like that.
And then Bar-Emin are swordfish, so they're fish who became warriors.
Oh, that's cool. Stone Dance makes you think of like Moon Dancer, the dragon, and the dragon dance of the dragons being like a metaphor for this eruption of these stone dragons. And so, yeah, that's all Moon Meteor stuff. Then the Cloud of Ravens erupts, so we're getting ready to invade. It's all pretty consistent. Let's see here. They put ashore at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, where 3 wooded hills rose above the village. And let's see. Darklands, Massies, Muds, Fishers, Brackens. Only broken stones and ruins remained. Celtigar or Celtigar. I think it should be Celtigar. Did I say Celtigar? I probably did. I meant Celtigar. So look, I was a basketball fan before I was a mythology fan. So I said Celtics for years and years and years even before I went to a Celtic Ren fair. So that is why I screw that up over and over. I do know the difference.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that George means Celtigar. But Roy Detrice says Celtigar, doesn't he? He does.
I think so. I know I say Celtigar, and it was also influenced because of the Boston Celtics.
Oh, Celtic Garth.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Okay, so the let's see. He quickly threw up a log on Earth Palisade. But this is, again, the meteor lands, and then we have this creation of the burning tree. We either see trees set on fire or the creation of a mushroom cloud that's like a burning tree. So as soon as Aegon lands, he throws up, like throwing up the debris from the landing, a log on Earth Palisade. So you see how the mushroom cloud debris thing has been combined with the idea of the tree skillfully. And then later it'll say that stuff is sprouting like mushrooms all over Aegon's Hill. So it's more mushroom clouds sprouting from King's Landing. Let's see. And, oh wait, Vhagar's burning stuff. I skipped a page.
Yeah, they go to secure the nearest castles. Rosby yielded to Rhaenys without a fight. At Stokeworth, a few crossbowmen loosed bolts at Visenya until Vhagar's flames set the roofs of the castle. Then they too submitted.
What are the sigils there? Stokeworth, that's like, what is
Stokeworth are sheep. They're the sheep with the golden cup.
Sheep is always other symbolism. Craster gives the sheep to the others. And Jon, when he goes north of the wall and joins the wildlings, who are symbolic others, he puts on a sheepskin cloak. That's wolf in sheep's clothing. But yeah, sheep is always other symbolism.
And then Rosby is the 3 red chevrons on Ermine.
Which is red and black.
It's 3 red arrows on a field of white, and there's these little...
And usually 3 is the number of the dragons. 3 dragons, 3 main meteor locations maybe, but frequently the meteor shower is either depicted as 1,000 fiery things or like 3. So that all tracks. We have the Fire Queen with the golden-eyed dragon going to Rosby, and Stokeworth gets Visenya. So this is why I wanted to pick through this, because it's very consistent. And of course, the main place Visenya goes is the Vale, which is all icy.
The sheep are sacrificed to the icy Visenya. You just said, yeah. The sheep go to the others. The Night's Queen takes down the sheep. Yeah. Yep.
So then let's see. Darkland of Duskendale and Mooten, that looks like Moontown of Maidenpool. And Darkland of Duskendale, that's a red. What's their sigil? Just anything that's dark is going to be associated with the fire moon that turned out the lights and turned dark. Like Dark Sister.
7 white escutcheon? It's like black diamonds on a yellow field, but then there's also white shields on a red field, and it's split.
Okay, so that might be doing both then. Some sigils will do that. Will do the both. That sounds like both. And then Mutin. What's Lord Mutin?
They're a red salmon.
Red salmon.
Red salmon on a white and gold treasure.
Oh, okay. Red salmon swimming upstream. That's Azor High in the Green Sea, swimming against the current. Love that. That's good. It's red herring, guys. Red salmon. Slightly different. Okay, so then Aegon sent Orys Baratheon out to attack them on the march while he descended from above with the Black Dread. Both lords were slain. Darkland's son and Mutin's brother yielded. At that time, Duskendale... So Duskendale, again, dusk is a sunset, dale is a wood. So we've got, it's like Hellholt. It's like, woods getting set on fire, getting burnt, turning into nighttime. Dunk's sigil is a dale with a sunset and a falling star.
Yeah, so it's dark wood, like woods at night, but also like woods being burnt.
Both, yeah, exactly. And let's see, it's the principal port. Grown wealthy, Visenya did not allow the town to be sacked, but did not hesitate to claim its riches. So Night's Queen possesses the riches of the darkened tree. To translate that sentence, maybe. This perhaps would be an apt place to discuss the differing characters of Aegon. Okay, here you go, Tim. Why don't you take over the reading here, and feel free to stop and expand on any of this as we go.
All right, so Visenya, eldest of the 3 siblings, was as much a warrior as Aegon himself, as comfortable in ringmail as in silk. She carried the Valyrian longsword Dark Sister and was skilled in its use, having trained beside her brother since childhood. Though possessed of silver gold hair and purple... Yep. Did you want...
Visenya carrying Dark Sister is another repetition of the Ice Moon having a piece of the Fire Moon inside of them. And this is followed up on because Rhaenys dies. And so Visenya's carrying around her memory and carrying around a sword that's essentially symbolically named after her role. That's all I want to say. Go ahead.
Skilled in its use, having trained beside her brother since childhood. Though possessed of the silver gold hair and purple eyes of Valyria, hers was a harsh, austere beauty. Even those who loved her best found Visenya stern, serious, unforgiving, and some said she played with poisons and dabbled in dark sorcery. So this brings me to what I mentioned earlier about the Ice Queen trope, and Visenya fits this to a T. The signature characteristic is that she is cold, but what exactly cold means can vary. There can be romantic elements or a lack thereof. Visenya has more of the... She definitely loves Aegon, but hers is more of a duty, honor type thing compared to the love that Aegon had for Rhaenys, who he was more infatuated with. That's why he spent 10 nights with her for every one he spent with Visenya. But then they mentioned Visenya's admirers from afar. She attracts the attention of admirers, but more than likely she's not going to be impressed by any of them. And why would she when she's married to the Conqueror?
So even that 10 nights for every one thing, I think is moon talk. Okay, so because it's the fire moon that conjoined with the sun, so they're together. The ice moon's like off somewhere else, taking a little bit of shrapnel, but it's not in the main. It's not getting blown up. So that's usually like the pairing how we see it. So I think that's just saying the Rhaenys is always with Aegon. The fire moon and the sun are conjoined. And then Rhaenys dies early. She's darkened, shot down. So,
yeah. But the beauty of the Ice Queen, like mentioned here, tends to be more of a cold and austere beauty, like they just said. Dangerous to the touch. Okay, Damon. Dangerous to the touch, impossible to embrace. Those who fall in love with her usually cannot find that she will love them back, or she's not much for friendship, preferring to be alone with her thoughts. These are typical Ice Queen things. And again, Visenya fits all of this. But, doesn't matter what they say, let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered her anyway.
And so then Rhaenys, on the other hand,
is more of the still a warrior, but more of a girly girl, and she has that sort of fire as a personality where it's associated with passion and emotion. And these are the ones that tend to have more people gravitating towards them because of the warmth that they give off. That people feel like they can get closer to them. That they're more people person than someone like Visenya would be, and that played into Rhaenys and Visenya's strength. Visenya was more of the cold, calculating logic. Rhaenys was the face that you let out to talk to the people, greet them, and meet with them because she's going to have a more warm reception to them.
This is the one I was looking for. This is Rhaenys Meraxes at the Last Storm here, which is dope. And this is, of course, Rhaenys meeting with the Yellow Toad of Dorne, receiving an ominous warning, and the picture on the right is that warning coming true, as we said. And that further connects the son of Martell to the death at Sunspear. Like, it was the Queen of Dorne who warned her, don't come back. You can see her sitting right in the sun throne there. Yellow toad. She's even got the yellow. So she's a sun frog. And then also Rhaenys is friends with singers. And Nissa Nissa, like I said, there is weirwood symbolism for both Night's Queen and Nissa Nissa. They both seem to be elf women. But Nissa Nissa definitely seems to be a child of the forest. So here we have Rhaenys is friends with singers, and she supports puppeteers like Tanzel Too Tall.
And here again, we see with these examples, we see again George, though, playing with the tropes and not keeping them in this rigid line. When Rhaenys goes and talks with the Yellow Toad of Dorne, you send her down because she's supposed to be the people person, but she gets this cold reception from Dorne, the one that says, like, no, we're not going to submit. Whereas Visenya is sent to the Vale, the icy one, and yet she wins it without violence because she wins over the young son, who is the young Lord Aaron, by giving him a ride on a dragon. So it goes the complete opposite of what you expect based on their personalities. You would think Visenya would be the one to have the more cold confrontation when meeting with the Lady Aaron, but no, she actually gets the Vale quite easily, whereas Rhaenys.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's implied as. I mean, I agree with you, but it's. I'm also saying that that's kind of gangster what Visenya did.
Yeah,
it was very menacing if you think about it, but just very subtle. It's a certain kind of gangster, that's more refined in their threats. There's the bloody horse head in the bed threat, and then there's the wink and a nod. I'm
going to make him an offer I can't refuse. But,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Terra Incognita pointed out Ice Queen stealing babies. Yeah, she took him for a ride on her dragon. So
I had that in my notes, too. She symbolically steals the prince, and she gets all 3 crowns of the Vale. And so basically she's now the queen of the Ice Castle Vale, and that makes her the symbolic mother. She gives the kid a ride on the dragon. So yes, it's all right there. At what point in the combined mythology, we all love you speculating on, do you think the weirwood trees went from green and brown to red and white? Oh, at the time of the Long Night. That's when it happened. Like, whatever he was doing in the sky, I think the ultimate purpose is to get the weirwood magic. I don't know if he had to break, the moon to do that, or if that was a side effect. But ultimately, what he seems to do is go into the weirwoods and remake them so that he can use them. Mm-hmm. And so, because the whole idea with the green blood and red blood, Tim, and I'll give this to you, is like, they used to be the trees of the green men. And so the trees had green blood and hands like, leaves like green hands. Now it's humans hooked up to them, so the blood is red and the leaves are red.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think a good example of this, because I've talked about before how George likes to take big concepts and then write them small and place them in the world building as like a little bit of folklore, but then expand on it to more world reaching, far reaching ramifications. And this goes to the Bracken Blackwood feud. The poisoned weirwood tree at Raven Tree Hall. The Brackens poisoned it, and that's one of the reasons given as to why the Brackens and Blackwoods hate each other. But the overarching thing is that whatever Azor Ahai did to the weirwood net ruined the trees, poisoned the trees. It transformed them. They're no longer what they once were. And we need to have like a sort of return to the original green and brown weirwoods that they used to be. These are the after effects.
Yeah, the Raven Tree Weirwood is a perfect example of the state of the Weirwood net. It's like half dead, still got some mojo, but it's not what it used to be. That's it in a nutshell.
And then you tack on the Shade of the Evening trees, which are the inverted colors, and they taste rancid.
So so in this case, the Brackens are the Azor Ahai person, and so look at their sigil. It's a red horse on brown. So it's the red of Azor Ahai, and the horse gets into Odin and Yggdrasil as the tree being a horse. But the main thing is really Bittersteel. Yeah, he's the Bracken that we all think of, and he combined that red horse with the dragon. So now it's a dragon horse poisoning the tree, quote unquote. Yeah. And even Bracken, like brackish water, is water that you can't drink.
You can't drink. Yeah. And I'm sure there's also more, because it's also sort of it's a horse with dragon wings. It's also a Pegasus. And if we ever do like if we get more on Bittersteel, I'm going to have to look more into Pegasus mythology and what George might be playing that with there.
Well, that gets into, this gets back to Pennytree and the Teats. See, the moons, Tim, they can either be where is it? Obviously, if you think of somebody mooning you can see the screen, right, Tim?
Yeah.
You're not laughing. So that's one way to look at a moon, okay? But George also mentions that, there are these two hills called the Teats. And I'm not sure what picture to put up as I talk. I'm just going to leave it white, tell you what. And in the middle of these two hills called the Teats is the town of Pennytree, named after a tree. So remember, this whole thing is a cosmic setup. The tree is the celestial axis. The moons, therefore, are orbiting around that axis because it's Earth's axis. And so that's why the tree is in between the two hills that are like the two moons, in between the Teats, Tim. And then we see that with Ygritte when she's killed. She gets an arrow in her chest, in the middle of her chest. So that arrow is now the world tree. Nissa Nissa's been killed, put in the world tree. And what happens to her? She's been kissed by fire. She's been a fiery maiden. But then in that moment of death, she gets a crystalline ice mask that forms over her face. So this is Nissa Nissa transforming into Night's Queen, which happens very often. So.
Yeah. Isn't there a river that runs between the Teats?
I don't know. There might be. You'd have to look up the Pennytree Wikipedia.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the Pennytree also had something to do with paying the ferrymen on the river Styx.
Oh, there's Teats. There's some boobs. There's some Mel boobs in there. There you go. Perfect. That was lucky. Somebody can look up, see if there's a river. There probably is.
Yeah.
There usually is a river and a tree. Like the wall is the river between the lands, the realms.
Specifically, I want to look up where was it that Dunk and Egg had to take when they're on their way to White Walls in the Mystery Night, they have to take a ferry where they're complaining about.
Stephanie C. heard you talk about a river between. She said, boob sweat. That's funny.
Martin, I'll look up boobs. Okay, yeah.
But the point is that the Brackens and the Blackwoods fight over the Teats. They each have their own names for them. So it just shows you, it just enhances, like this is the two moons, Bracken and Blackwood. It kind of shows you the two different ideas. And so it's a big cosmic setup. So now, okay. Somebody pointed out in Elden Ring, The dark moon is Rani, like Rainey's. And that would be the fire moon. And then the ice moon's name is, what is it? What's the other moon? Moon maiden in that game? The red fork runs between the two teats? Wow. Any case, yeah, I don't know what the other moon queen, isn't it Renala? Something like that.
I don't know. I haven't actually played the game. My knowledge of Elden Ring's very surface level.
They had just said it in the chat. Yeah, that's the only reason. But yeah, Renala is she's the full moon. That would be oh no, Rani is watery icy. Okay.
Is Rani the blue witch with the 4 arms?
I think that's, yeah. Oh, the fire moon maiden would be Michaela, right? Or is it Michaela?
Where's Eldritch Stoneskin? We need him.
Yeah. Yeah, the main one. The one that like is under the tree. Anyway, yeah, okay. Well, we can't go too far into Elden Ring, but the point is you can see some of these same ideas present over there. So Rainey's, blah, blah, blah. Aegon is an enigma. And okay, well, the thing I wanted to get to, I'm losing patience with picking through this. I also have this in notes, but I'm looking for the point where they make the Kingsguard. Oh, that's going to be in Aegon's reign, not in the Conquest. Okay, so the point is, Tim, that it's all stacks up. Okay, so Rhaenys, like we said, is sent to Dorne. Visenya's sent to Vale. We just went over their personalities. Visenya's cold. Rhaenys is warm. It's not subtle. Meraxi's shot down. We just went over all that symbolism. And then Visenya takes the Vale. The other thing is Visenya creating the Kingsguard. So this is a really great one. I did a whole video called The Symbolism of the Other's Kingsguard, but I'm sure all y'all are familiar with this stuff. Okay. The others are described: moon pale armor, milk white, snow white, white shadows, pale shadows, all those same words used for the Kingsguard. And so we have 6 others plus Waymar. We have 7 Kingsguard, one of whom is the Lord Commander. Waymar is the symbolic commander in that scene. So it is very good parallel. Now, who do the others guard? The Kingsguard. They guard a king and a queen. So that must be Knights, King, and Queen, optimally. And who is it that creates the Kingsguard? It's Visenya. How does she do it, Tim?
So one day while they're out and about, she takes her sword to Aegon and comes like within an inch of his face, just enough to give him a slash, and tells him, "Your men are too slow. If I was serious, you'd be dead. You need better guards." That's what leads to the creation of the Kingsguard.
So she takes the blood of the king and says, we need to make some better soldiers. And then she makes the other like Kingsguard. And Nissa and Knight's Queen took the seed and soul of Knight's King and then created the others. So,
yeah,
very tight.
Because I know so earlier in the chat, somebody had asked
Marika. I said, what did I call her? Michaela. It's Marika. Sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
So someone in the chat, I guess because they were trying, which I understand is like, get to the point. Which moon do we think is the one that fell from the sky? I'm going with, because of the way the story of the Conquerors, it's the fire moon is the one that cracks. It's the ice moon that's left, because Rhaenys is the one that dies. Visenya lives to old age. She lives the long. not only she lives old age, she lives the longest. She outlasts Aegon, and she's the one who produces the monster baby Maegor. Rhaenys produces Aenys, and what happens after Rhaenys dies? Aenys regresses. At 3 years old, he goes back to crawling like an infant, without the sun, without the fire moon providing that light and warmth. Her son regresses, and that's why I think like we're left in this state. Like the seasons are all wonky. It's why our winters are so harsh when they happen.
That's a good. So another parallel to that is when Rhaegar and Lyanna are abscond together. King's Landing immediately freezes over for like a few weeks or whatever. Yeah, kind of similar. And then so yes, she takes the blood of Aegon, creates the Kingsguard, who are other-like, and then they live in the White Sword Tower, which is a snow castle. So that's all pretty awesome. And also, like, yeah, after Rhaenys dies, it's like described specifically as a dark time. And then the dragons go and they burn everything in Dorne over and over and over again. So that is like the scourge of the moon meteors, you know, blasting the land, essentially, after the death of the moon. The Maegor thing, that's what I wanted to follow up on. Yes, so the mother of... Night's Queen is the mother of the others. Night's Queen is like the moon. The others are like cold moon meteors. So, Visenya is the mother of the Kingsguard in that she creates the Kingsguard. And then, similarly, the warrior sons, Visenya didn't create them, but they live in a white marble castle on Visenya's hill. So they are also coming from the moon, the ice moon. So it's very tight parallel between Visenya making the warrior son, or Visenya making the Kingsguard, and the warrior sons coming from Visenya's hill. That's what I was trying to say. And then so Maegor is another offspring of the ice moon, and Maegor essentially parallels the others. Maegor is a monster. Gilly's child, another symbolic other baby, is named Monster. And Jon Snow has an evil name. And he's going to turn into a monster because he's going to be a white. And Cold Hands is referred to as a monster, and he's a white. So there is that, like, yeah, the ice moon has monstrous children very frequently. And the fire moon usually has dead children more often. So like Elya's kids are killed. Dany's babies killed. Melisandre's kids are shadow babies.
I was trying to find, I'm having problems getting to it, the original Fire and Ice poem by Robert Frost.
That shouldn't be hard to find.
I know, this just, for whatever reason, the Poetry Foundation doesn't want to load.
It's only because you need it, and you're live on the internet with 500 people watching. Please click thumbs up. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And yeah, just when you need it.
So I think what I'm getting at is here, because what I think happened is why I think it's the fire moon that fell. Going back to the Fire and Ice poem, the two ways that the world can be destroyed through fire and ice, but fire tends to be the quicker death, whereas ice is the slow death, and that's why we have the long night. And again, with Aegon and Visenya and Rhaenys, the fire moon falls first. Visenya, the ice moon, lives the longest. The ice moon is doing all the work and doing all the heavy lifting. That's why, again, I think it's the ice moon is the one that Westeros and Essos are left with. The ice moon is now having to do all the work and make up for the lack of the fire moon that once existed.
Well, the fire moon is still with us. It's just, it's corpse.
Broken.
Yeah.
It's broken. Yeah.
Corpse bits.
But yeah, the ice moon has to pick up the slack.
The other thing about that is, again, all of the Nissa Nissa myth is fire-coded. And Nissa Nissa is dead. Like, her story is that she dies. Night's Queen never dies in her story. We don't hear about what happens to her. We hear Night's King gets thrown down. They don't say anything about Night's Queen. She just buggered off or something. We don't know. Maybe she lives in the weirwood tree. They never saw her. So you see the point. Like, yeah, ice preserves. And the ice moon is still around. The fire moon is definitely the one that got knocked out of the sky. So speaking of the sky, let me show you a little something from Stellarium. I'm going to make this bigger. And we're going to turn off the landscape. And we're going to turn on the constellations. Oh, it is right where I left it. Okay. So this bright band is the Milky Way. And the ecliptic should be... Oh, that works too. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, we want this one. Okay, so this is the pole star. And you can see the path of the ecliptic here. So we want to focus on the northern sky. Right now, the pole star is Ursa Major, which is at the tip of the Little Dipper. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
This is Draco. You see Draco? It wraps around Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper. So the thing about this is that this pole star location moves over time, slowly, because of precession. And that looks like this. So right here, this is the upper circle. This is our pole star. You see it at the tip of the Little Dipper here again. That's Polaris. Now you see this orange circle, how it's got all these dates, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000. That's years in the future. So we go this way, it's negative. So 10,000, 14,000 years ago, the pole star, the closest one, it was Draco. It was Alpha Draconis. This is the one they used. Because it's the closest one to the seeming pole. Okay? And so if you look on the right, you can see this circle carved out in space. It's because the Earth has this wobble. And so over the course of 26,000 years, the precession of the equinoxes, it's called, the pole star gradually moves. And so in 3000 BC, it was Thuban, and which is Alpha Draconis. That's the head of the dragon. And Vega was the pole star in 1400 AD, also 14,000 years ago. So these are important stars. This is basically, there's a lot of the story right here. So first of all, in Ice and Fire, the pole star is called the Eye of the Ice Dragon, or the eye of the rider of the ice dragon. And that is a northern star. So when we look in the northern sky on Earth, we see there is a dragon. It's Draco. And we see that in 3000 BC, the pole star was in fact the eye of Draco. It's this blue-white star called Thuban, Alpha Draconis, which means, well, Alpha Draconis means head dragon. The word Thuban also means head dragon. And I believe that's Arabic, or head of the serpent. And it is literally, this is the head of Draco. So that's why George says the eye of the ice dragon is the pole star. He's referring to Thuban, Alpha Draconis. Now, the other pole star that I mentioned is Vega. And Vega, let me go back to Stellarium. Vega is in the constellation Lyra. I'm going to flip it around here. Yeah. Ugh. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to navigate this thing. I got as good as I could at it last night, but it is wonky. Come back. Okay, that'll do. So Lyra here, it's not quite in the north, but it's so this as the pole star is moving around, like Lyra is sometimes the closest to the pole star. And Vega is the one that is used as the pole star. Vega is the fifth brightest star in the sky, and it is a blue-white giant. And the thing about Vega is that it is where the name Vhagar came from. Mm-hmm. Okay? Vega means falling vulture. So isn't that a perfect name for Vhagar. It gives Vhagar ice dragon symbolism because this is a blue pole star, which is the ice dragon in Ice and Fire, and it's named Vega, like Vhagar. And Vhagar is, of course, we've found out, blue and green. That's the right coloring. So ice dragon colors, and named after a pole star, a blue star. But the thing about Vega is it's in Lyra, Tim. Lyra is the lyre, so that's a harp. And Lyra sounds like Lyanna.
Yeah, and Rhaegar played a harp.
Rhaegar played a harp. So you've got Rhaegar and Lyanna right there, next to the ice dragon, and the larger ice dragon constellation. Now, the final piece of this is the ice wagon. So again, 1976, song for Lya. Lya is the early version of Lyanna with a similar name after Lyra. She is the ice queen here. Song for Lya. Rhaegar sings a song for Lyanna. Okay. So the northern constellation, instead of the ice dragon, it's called the ice wagon. The ice wagon is a reference to the Big Dipper, which is in Ursa Major. You see the Big Dipper here? It's the butt and tail of the Great Bear, Ursa Major. You see it?
Yeah.
And these two stars of the Dipper point at Polaris. That's something many people know. You take the last two of the Dipper, it points at the Little Dipper, there's the pole star. So this Big Dipper here, it has been seen as a ladle and also as a wagon. So when George says the ice wagon contains the pole star, and he says that it carries the souls of the dead to the afterlife. So you think of like a wain. It's called the ice wain, actually, not ice wagon. Sorry, ice wain. Same thing. And so that is referring to the Big Dipper. That is the wagon in the north that takes the souls to the afterlife. So both the ice dragon and the ice wagon are northern constellations that at different times contain the pole star. And in House Waynwood, he has an 8-spoked wagon wheel with one broken spoke. That's referencing the Celtic calendar wheel, which has 8 spokes. And the broken spoke is over, I believe it is over Imbolc, which is the winter season. So it is basically the cycle of the seasons. The wheel gets broken on winter on sigil of House Waynwood, because that's referring back to the ice wagon, which is this wheel of the constellations. You with me?
Yeah, I'm also thinking, so a broken wheel on the wagon for the dead, they can't be transported to the next life, so they're stuck here. And
that's
the
whites.
others, yeah, whites. That's whites, and that's and that's an insult to the fate, which is an insult to the entire Faceless Men's philosophy that everything must die. But if it can't move on, then it can't truly die. And then that goes back to the Lovecraft thing of in strange aeons, even death may die, because without the ability to move on, they're just stuck here.
So there's the wheel. So let me pull up House Waynwood, and I'll just correlate this. So it's the upper right, and that is indeed Imbolc, which is in winter. So George is a mad genius, like I said. I don't know what to tell y'all. I'm trying to explain this as coherently as I can, but it's just you're just dancing around all this parallelism. It's hard, but
yeah.
Hopefully you're following me.
That goes me back to Serwyn of the Mearshield. The other thing it was said about him was that he was haunted by the ghosts of all the knights he killed. So again, if this is another, to be haunted by ghosts means that these people weren't able to move on to the next life, to the afterlife.
And the ice moon is haunted in that it has this piece of the dead fire moon inside of it. Yeah. Just as Visenya carries Dark Sister, the ice moon carries a piece of its dark sister, and it is haunted.
Yeah. The wagon's trying to carry the dead, but it can't move, and they're all there screaming, I'm not dead. I'm happy.
There is a formulation where it's the ice moon that summons the comet, weirdly. Imagine the ice moon as like the night king in waiting, and he's like calling the comet to kill the other moon. So that's Serwyn slaying the dragon Urax, like Euron calling the comet and trying to kill Dany, trying to break the world and kill Dany at the same time. There's a version of that where George depicts the wizard as the ice moon, but gets a little confusing, But let's see here. Then
because there's so many also different mythology when it comes to like the cycle of souls, and like reincarnation and nirvana. It depends on like which mythology, which culture are you drawing upon? Because then you go into ideas of reincarnation or nirvana or rebirth and all of that.
I really like that. I didn't look up the meaning of Vega. So that idea that Vega, it means falling vulture, that's a new thing to me. And that couldn't be better for Vhagar. She turns into an old vulture of a dragon. And vulture is also like a word you could use for Visenya, like like haggard and cranky, I have a good old Visenya artwork. Where's that one?
Yeah. Hey, she had a lot to deal with. The Ice Moon had to start doing the job of two. And it didn't help the situation that the sun, who is Aegon, the dragon, preferred the Fire Moon over her. So, all the heavy lifting and no thank yous for it.
Yeah.
And then this leads me to another reason why I think, again, the Ice Moon is the one that's left behind. In a two moon, when was looking at my notes of what would happen in a two moon system if one broke, the remaining moon, if it's the one that's further away, would experience the planet would experience a shift in orbit due to gravitational forces, and this would cause extreme tides and tsunamis. So that made me think of like the Hammer of the Waters. And then Visenya, the further moon, well, they're talking in terms of distance, but Visenya, in terms of the relation emotionally available, Visenya is the one that's further away because she's the cold ice queen, and Aegon didn't like her as much.
Thuban is definitely in the head of Draco. It literally means head. So I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. But somebody said Haggard and Cranky is the name of my biopic. That could work. And so let's see. What else do we have here with these three conquerors? Well, Aegon's High Hill has some symbolism we haven't talked about. The Iron Throne itself. If you think of the Targaryen monarch, the Solar King sitting on the Iron Throne, it's essentially it's another eclipse thing where the throne becomes the exploding black meteor swords and coming out from behind the monarch who's like the moon. So there's it's that exploding eclipse picture of the moon in front of the dark sun, and there's these dark rays coming out. And let's see here. The black cells and the hidden dragon passageways beneath are like the underworld. There's the spiral well to give us that turning axis bit. The dragon skull chamber down there. So it's like a mini dragon. Remember we said Dragonstone is the underworld. It's under the mountain. So at King's Landing, that's the mini version of that. One thing about the Hill of Rhaenys and the Hill of Visenya, between them runs the Street of Sisters, straight as an arrow. So this is, again, the fire moon giving shrapnel like an arrow to its sister moon. The Alchemist Guildhall is under the Hill of Rhaenys. So, more fiery stuff. And, the Dragon Pit wore a crown of fire at the storming of the Dragon Pit. So it hatched, it cracked open like an egg. Then it wears the crown of fire. That creates the ring of fire eclipse symbol.
Oh, so
it literally says the dragon pit wore a crown of fire. That's the line. Kaput is head bro, Thuban is tail bro. Okay, well, let's look it up. It was late. Maybe I made a mistake. I don't think so. But I do like to get things right, so let's see. Oh, yeah, it's not in the head. It does mean head, but it's not. It's in the tail. Why is that? Thuban means large snake. Okay, I confused something. Let me see what I did. Sometimes known as the dragon's tail. Okay, well, that's the name George used for the comet.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think it was the head? There's a reason. You got me, though. Good catch. Who was that in the chat? Thank you. You don't got to bro me next time, but you were right.
Yeah. So there was a question in the chat I wanted to pick up on where someone was asking, wouldn't it be the ice moon that fell to Earth and that's what caused the others? Like, no. What? It's the fact that the ice moon is the one that's retaining governance that causes that causes these things to happen. It's why the winters are so long.
Yeah, it's more powerful. Right.
It's more powerful. It's why the dragons died out, but the others never truly went away. They just went into hibernation. And it's why the fiery relationships seem to burn out and fizzle so fast when the character representing the fire moon dies. Now, we just said with Aegon, he preferred Rhaenys over Visenya. Rhaenys just dies first. Jon's relation with Ygritte, it burns hot and fast. And then Ygritte, it's very short though. Ygritte dies. His relationship with Val is going a lot slower. He has yet Val's waiting on him to claim her. But Val's also thrown up a red flag with the idea of you should kill Shireen because of the grayscale. I've always had this idea that when the burning of Shireen happens, if Mel does it, Val's going to be the one to light the torch. And I think that's going to make Jon, when he comes back, look at Val in a very different light. Stannis Baratheon, he has Mel and Selyse. Well, who does he prefer going to bed with? He shares his bed with Selyse, his icy queen, once a year, and he treats it like a chore. So, yeah, no, it's the fact that the ice moon is the one that's still in governance that causes these long winters. The fire moon, the one that's fun, goes out first, and you're left wanting for it.
Very well put. That I hadn't really thought about that too much. I did think about the fact that, like, well, the ice moon is still here. That's why the winters are stronger and longer. But I like the way that you phrased that. It's very poetic.
Yeah.
And now, here we see, I got Wikipedia. That's what happened. So we were just on the page for Thuban, and you saw it said dragon's tail. Mm-hmm. The traditional name of Alpha Draconis Thuban means head of the serpent. This is the page for Draco. So one of those is wrong. But that's why I said that. I wasn't tripping. I did read it. It says it right there. You see it. And it's quoting a source. So I don't know how that... Yeah, it's...
Yeah. Everyone feels bad for the ice moon now.
Oh, yeah, you should feel bad. Well, the fire moon got it pretty bad, too.
Yeah. The one who prefers his ice moon is the Night's King.
Nearby Beta Draconis, traditionally called Rastaban, is a yellow giant star. Its name shares a meaning with Thuban, head of the serpent. Okay. Well, let's go to not Wikipedia. Let's try that. Head of the serpent. No, that's AI. Damn it. Come on, Merriam-Webster. Light on detail. Illinois.edu. It says the same thing, Dragon's Head. You saw the location, though. It's in the tail. I wonder if they changed the naming of it at some point or something. They do that sometimes. Even though the star is in the dragon's tail, its name confusingly derives from an Arabic phrase meaning the serpent's head, having been borrowed from that of another star. So that's, at least it's acknowledged as confusing by the university. I appreciate that. It was confused. We were just confused, but we sorted it out. It is not in the head. That would actually make it closer to the pole. So that kind of makes sense. But the brightest star in Draco is in the head. So anyway, point being, that's where the name Vhagar comes from, and that's why the Ice Dragon constellation contains the pole star. So
yeah. Oh, and then I guess another thing I want to tack on there. We all know the phrase, better to burn out than to fade away. So I think George is playing, even with that line, with the dragons and the others. The dragons die, but then they have to be reborn. And that's George playing with the idea of death and rebirth. Whereas the others, they never truly died. They faded from memory, but they were just sleeping. They were in hibernation. And that is more of that Lovecraft dead but dreaming going on.
And I don't think you can kill others, too. This is my worst, most terrifying theory about the others, is that because they are a hive mind, the ice bodies are just manifestations. And popping one probably sets them back. They probably need like more sheep or sons to like manifest, but like you can't actually kill the others if they're a hive mind. They are eternal. We're going to have to put them back in the trees where they will continue to exist. So yeah, that all checks out.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that all fits too. Remember what I said about Europa and the idea of an ice moon? It's going to lose its icy crust and just be a rock. Well, the others are going to lose their ice and go back into the trees. They're going to lose their icy shell and go back to their core, which is a green man spirit, and go back into the tree.
Yeah. And you said an Io's the one that's closer to Jupiter, so it's the one that's getting pulled on. And just like with Phobos, the one that's closer is the one that has the greater potential of being pulled apart. It could potentially happen to Io if it were to ever wander closer to Jupiter. It's a given that it's going to happen to Phobos when it gets too close to Mars.
Shout out to the video game Doom, which is the only reason. That's first place I heard Deimos and Phobos.
Yeah. The fire moon is always the one to wander too close and get ripped apart, and the ice moon is always the one that's furthest out, but safe because of it, but distant emotionally, and physically. Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. So, some people will say, this is why it takes George longer to write the story. And maybe that's true sometimes, but really I think this makes it easier because it gives him these patterns to follow. He doesn't have to determine every random detail about Visenya out of thin air because he knows he's going to generate it from a larger body of symbolism that comes from this Night's Queen archetype. So I mentioned Lyra and Lyanna and all that, but there's also the Lyannan She, one of the Ice She, a form of the She that is basically Night's Queen. She's an enchantress. She traps you in the other world if you don't do the right things. And the picture of her looks just like Night's Queen. I've shown it many times. So that's why Lyanna is Lyanna, it seems like. So he kind of combined like Lyra and the Lyre and the Lyannan She. And he got this Night's Queen being sung to by a bard. You know, Night's King is always a bard figure. Mm-hmm. Usually, in some way, you know, like Rhaegar is a bard, and then Peter Baelish, another Night's King, he has Marillion, and he is Bael-ish. So he's like a Bael figure, Bael-ish. Anyway, so I think that's, I mean, we could talk about any of these other triangles here, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Rhaegar, Elia, and Lyanna is a pretty easy one to spot. Elia of Dorne with the sun symbolism. Lyanna with the blue winter roses from Winterfell. Mm-hmm. They die in slightly reverse order, but the horrible, violent death, all the details of Gregor and the kids and Elia, it's all smashing Fire Moon stuff, you know. So that, and it's in the Red Keep that it happens. So it's the Moon Queen is wandering too close to the sun in the Red Keep. And then Gregor the Mountain could be like a meteor coming to hit that. So yeah. Then you've got Lyanna, obviously that speaks for itself. We talked about Selyse. I have a picture of Selyse, actually. And you can see her sigil. This is the clue that she's a Night's Queen. Look at her sigil. A dozen blue flowers. So it's just like Lyanna's crown of winter roses or Loras's forget-me-nots. And then the personality to match.
Yeah. I mean, Selyse is more of the Ice Queen in the sense... I was talking about the trope, the Ice Queen, but then there's also the Ice Queen of the unhappy marriage, because her and Stannis hate each other. Like I said, Stannis only spends one night a year with her in his bed. They say he goes to her bed like a man going off to war. Like, wish me luck, boys. This might be my last one. You know, in a good context, that might be fun if it was with death by snoo situation. But for Stannis, it's not. Like, this is a chore. His nights with Selyse are more like somebody puked on the rug, and I guess I'm gonna have to be able to clean it up. And it's like that's not a happy marriage. So, but I'll have more to say about Stannis when we do the Theon chapter, because Stannis does most of the talking. So anyone who wants to hear me talk Stannis, the end of the month, I'll have a lot to say about him.
And I do want to shout out this. This is a new piece of Elia art I found recently. The artist is Zuralga. Zuralgaa. Pretty sick. This is obviously Elia as Queen of Westeros, which she wasn't because Rhaegar never took the throne, but so alternate timeline. And that is Lyanna by Villepero. Yeah, this label is wrong right there. So, yeah. And then let's see, like, so Tristan for Asha and Carl. Asha is the Fire Moon, I think, because she gets the Nissa Nissa role of sacrificed against the tree in the Wolf's Wood. She's talking about splashing blood on the moon throughout the whole chapter. She's the wayward bride, and it's Stannis catching up to her is when she gets knocked out, essentially. So Azor Ahai catches Nissa Nissa. She's sacrificed against the tree almost, and also the black. It's all the black coloring, like that sex scene with her and Carl. Carl, they call out, oh, she's all her hair is dark and he's very blonde, and not very hairy. So he sounds like the Ice Moon, Carl the maid. She sounds like the Fire Moon, And I think the Solar King is Christopher Botley. So he's kind of getting cucked like Robert, essentially, in the layout of it. I know Christopher doesn't, they were never a couple, so he's not really getting, but you see what I'm saying. He's the Solar King, and he's not having any fun in games. The moons are coupling.
And he's more treated like a pest, which is funny because the Botley sigil, not just the sigil but also the name. So the sigil is silverfish on a green sea. So it's like gray. There's your Gray King green sea metaphor, but silverfish is also the name of a sort of bug. And if you've ever seen them, God, they're horrifying. I found one in my basement once, and I was like, "We got to burn the entire house down.
Yeah,
we got to nuke the whole thing from orbit. It's the only way to make sure."
That checks out.
And then the name Botley, it makes me think of bot flies, which bot flies are one of the most horrifying pests because they lay their eggs in open wounds, usually of cattle, but sometimes of humans, and the maggots will eat their way through the flesh and literally eat you from the inside out. So it all plays up to Christopher being kind of like this annoying, like, gadfly that's flying around Asha.
I think that is the interpretation. And Christopher is kind of the Lucifer name, like Christopher, the Hammer of Justice. He seems like the guy, the king's summoning all the comet hammer and all that stuff. So, yeah. And then with, one thing that's interesting about Dany is when she becomes the queen in Marine, she then takes on the solar aspect. And
and this becomes this is the gender inversion of it. Like, Dany is Drogo. Khal Drogo is her sun and stars, and she is the moon of his life. But when we flip that and make Drogo the moon, he becomes the fire, and Dany becomes the sun. Drogo is the fire moon.
No. Hold on. No. Yeah. This happens. She doesn't become the sun figure until after all that. It's when she becomes the leader and assumes a leadership role that she becomes solar. So that would mostly be like in Marine. So Drogo's out of the picture by then. We've got whole new boy toys to break down. Okay. So both Daario and Hizdahr, I found out, are doing both ice and fire moon stuff. So think about this. Daario starts off completely dyed blue, icy, and then when he changes to purple, Dany says he looks like a lost Valyrian. So he's transforming. I mentioned Jon going from ice to fire. I mentioned Aegon, fire covered in ice, same thing. And then Hizdahr symbolism in the dream is icy. That's what we always think of, Tim. But in real life, he's fiery. He's all gold. And the description of Hizdahr is really interesting.
Yeah, he also does a transformation because when we first meet him, he's doing that traditional Giscari weird hairstyle where he has red and black made out to look like wings, and he has a beard. But then later on, he shaves.
Lots of gold coloring. Yeah, he shaves, right, which makes him icier. Jeez, how many ads do we need? And he has, let's see, where is it? Yeah, red and black wings. His hair is like wings too, which is awesome. So that's Fire Moon, about to take flight. That just like Dragonstone. Remember, I said it's like the Fire Moon about to launch meteors. So that's his hair. And he has golden rings in his beard. And what was the other thing? Oh, amethyst and pearls. He wears a tokar, a purple tokar with amethyst and pearls. So he's the amethyst empress. And pearl is moon symbolism. And then a burgundy tokar with a golden stripe. And a fringe of golden beads. So that sounds mostly like fiery stuff. Definitely some moon stuff. Amethyst Empress call out. And then in the dream, all icy. His manhood is icy. His lips are blue and bruised, and he's a warlock.
Yeah. He's also described as pale. Now, this is pale in Giscari terms because he still has a darker skin tone. But as far as Giscari skin tones look, that he's described as more pale than the average Giscari, which that always gives like icy other imagery anytime someone's skin is said to be pale.
Yeah, and then so that's Daario and Hizdahr, and they're both doing ice to fire. So there's golden Hizdahr, and then that's Pyat Pri, but essentially that's what Hizdahr looks like in the dream. So I think it makes sense to give Dany these ice and fire combos because her ultimate destiny is to be with Jon, who has ice and fire unity symbolism. So I think that's what this pattern is. Dany's getting this series of people that are pointing the way to Jon.
Yeah. And that's what makes it Jon's sort of a continuation of Aegon, because after Rhaenys dies and Visenya's the only one left, Aegon never takes another wife. He never gets another fire moon. Jon lost his fire moon when he lost Ygritte, but Dany presents an option for a new fire moon, just as Jon presents the option of a new sun.
Yeah, that makes sense. These characters that go beyond the cycle of the first two, because they're showing us some sort of rebirth or reestablishment. That could make sense. George sometimes just repeats the pattern, over and over again if somebody's plot is too long. So, yeah. Dany replays the moon again in other places. The main thing is the pyre, and then she mostly turns into like a solar figure. But yeah, in different scenes, she may do the different parts. So, the doomed love triangle of Robert, Lyanna, and Ned. Muscle.
Muscled like a maiden's dream.
Like I said, I got Catelyn. Catelyn as a fiery cat, she can be a fire moon or a sun, but someone becomes a sun kind of when you center their perspective. That sort of makes them the center of the story around which everything orbits, right? So if you look at Cat, the two men orbiting around her are Brandon and Ned. And famously, Brandon is hot-blooded and Ned is not. So that kind of tracks. Yeah. All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts on Moons of Ice and Fire, Tim?
Just that the other one would be the other love triangle would be if we throw Ashara Dane into the mix with Ned, and she's another one of these characters who can play both the ice and the fire moon because of Dorne, heat, fire, falling star, but then also dawn, cold white meteor, and the very cold colors of purple and white that the Danes use.
And the idea that Ashara Dane might still be out there somewhere.
Yeah, she is. She's in Greywater Watch. She's
so Peter is very much an evil Sun King. His moon meteor symbolism is the Titan head of Braavos, but basically he is. It's more about that Merlin King boat that he has. So he's like the trickster in the Green Sea, like tricking everybody and trapping people. So he has Lysa and Cat. And Cat is much warmer. And Lysa is the one who goes to the Eyrie and freezes. So, and then we see the same pattern happen when Cat shows up in the Vale, or Sansa, and replays Cat's symbolism.
Yeah, and they both have the red Tully hair, so they've both been kissed by fire. They're both sent to freeze because one goes to the Vale and one goes up north. But Cat finds warmth in her marriage with Ned, which is something that Lysa never finds with Jon Arryn.
Yeah, and Lysa, there's little bits in Lysa's story that makes it sound like, oh, you used to be Nissa Nissa. Like, you used to be fair. And she still does have red hair, but it's like not as glorious as it used to be. So there's like these little hints. that she used to be Nissa Nissa, but now she's Night's Queen. And sometimes with the Nissa Nissa characters, you get a clue that they could become a Night's Queen, like Melisandre. Some people have speculated that she'll flip to ice somehow and, become a Night's Queen. So that could happen.
Yeah, do you have that picture of the figurine of Icy Melisandre?
I do have it somewhere.
Yeah, for those who don't know, if you haven't been over, I learned this because of Quinn the GM. This is a figurine that George had commissioned, and it's like a color swap, palette swap of Melisandre, but it makes her look like an ice priestess, a night queen figure.
So the story is that George specifically had requested to have a Mel painted in this color scheme, and so. Durndon, who came up with the theory that Night's Queen may have been an icy priestess like Mel is, but with ice instead of fire, he found this when he did his original essay in 2015. So that's where I saw it. And he definitely took it as a clue that George is thinking about Night's Queen as a cold Melisandre. So, and I think that makes sense because it's like somebody has to turn to ice first to make the others. Like there has to be some origin point where someone transforms into an icy being. And Mel starts off as a human and is turning into a fire being through just using fire magic a bunch. So this gives us a route to create a Night's Queen who can be mother of the others. Then Azor Ahai can come along like a fool and give his seed and soul in enchantment to this beautiful Night's Queen, and she can take that and make the others out of him. So yeah.
So I guess to sum it all up, bringing everything back to Azor Ahai, which we are wont to do. If we look at Azor Ahai, and he has his Nissa Nissa, and we look at Bloodstone Emperor, and he has Amethyst Empress, who he kills, and then a tiger woman that he takes to bride later. And then we have Night's King, who has his Night Queen. Now, if we look at all of these characters, if we come to the conclusion that all three of these characters, Bloodstone Emperor, Azor Ahai, Night's King, were one and the same, and these are all different cultural interpretations of the same story, then what we end up with when we mash this all together is we get a story of one man who had two wives, an ice wife and a fire wife, and he killed the fire wife and was left with the ice wife. Which is like what we're talking, which again has been the running theme throughout this entire presentation. If the dragon has three heads, then the three heads in this are Azor Ahai, Night's King, and Bloodstone Emperor. And I bring that up to talk about that to bring this back. In Dante's Inferno, Satan is presented as Satan is the dragon, and he has three faces in a frozen hell. And this is how I kind of ultimately view the Azor Ahai story. Azor Ahai is not a hero. He's more. This is something coming out of the Shadowlands, and the other faces of him are the Night's King and the Bloodstone Emperor. And we are seeing all of these aspects here. And if Nissa Nissa is the fire wife that he kills for power, then who is the ice wife that comes after? Bloodstone Emperor gets this tiger woman. Now this could be Lengi. This could be Children of the Forest. I think what's more important is the idea of it's some kind of monster woman. It's some kind of otherized person, something non-human that he took to wife, and that becomes the Night's Queen. That Night's King is left with when we only hear his story. I think like these are all broken fragments of the same story. But when we put them together, we can kind of sum up a linear version of what happened.
So, George, I love the Dante Lucifer trapped in the frozen lake thing for several reasons. One, I believe it's where George got the idea of the others' voices being like the cracking of ice on a winter lake. Mm-hmm. That is literally the sound of Lucifer escaping his prison in the ninth circle of hell. And doesn't that make sense for the sound of the others invading? Okay. Now, if Azor Ahai is the one who became Night's King and gave his fiery seed and soul to Night's Queen to turn into the burning ice of the others. Well, this is a picture of what happened. That's Azor Ahai the dragon locked in the ice, isn't it? And and remember, I keep saying all the ice places have a dragon symbol, a black dragon symbol frozen in there. Jon Snow at Winterfell, the Black Castle at the Wall, Oathkeeper in the White Tower, the Dark Mountain, the Giant's Lance embedded in the ice of the Eyrie. Over and over and over, the same thing. And so here it is. This is literally the dragon locked in ice. Mm-hmm. And he's going to break out. And that's Azor Ahai. He's in the frozen weirwood net as Night's King, and he's going to come back. He's going to reincarnate.
Yeah. And another clue that Azor Ahai is actually evil. So this is a myth that comes out of the Shadow, that originally originates in the Shadowlands. It's coming out of Asshai. In the poem Dante's Inferno, the middle face of Lucifer that's staring out, the one that's facing forward, is described as vermilion. Vermilion is a shade of red, and it's derived from cinnabar, which is a mineral used to make lacquer. What are the masks that the Shadow Men wear? They are red lacquer masks. Quaithe wears a red lacquered mask.
Oh, maybe that's where he got that idea.
So this idea of this hero coming out of the Shadowlands, but it's actually an aspect of Lucifer, plays more in the idea that no, this was no hero. This is an evil Azor Ahai, and more than likely the true faces of him are the ones on the sides, the Night's King and the Bloodstone Emperor.
Yeah, something like that. That tracks to me. Yeah.
The other thing about lacquer is lacquer can also be made from resin, which is like a sap, and weirwoods bleed red sap.
And that's the obvious thing that we always thought with Quaithe's red wooden mask. It's like, oh, well, that makes her like us. It's like Nissa Nissa's spirit in the weirwood net, speaking to Dany, essentially, speaking out from behind the mask.
Yeah. And it's another one of those, like, are there weirwoods in Essos or out in Asshai? Well, if nothing grows in Asshai, where are they getting the red lacquer to make these masks? Because it's a resin, it's a sap that comes from trees.
Or I thought it was maybe just some crushed beetles or something. There you go. And then Morna White Mask has a weirwood mask also. So that sort of develops that she's a witch woman with a weirwood mask. Quaithe is a witch woman with a red lacquer wood mask. So there's something going on there.
Yeah. You're telling me the story that came out of the place where nothing is banned and they can do all the blood magic they want was actually a bad guy all along? Yeah. I think that's the conclusion we're coming to.
But Elric and Yyrkoon are both such upright people. I mean, Yyrkoon is horrible and Elric is,
Elric is perfect.
Elric is the grayest of gray. I mean, he's like,
I've been reading Elric in my free time. After I want to do Elric and then move on to Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. I am thoroughly enjoying Elric as a first.
It's fun, isn't it? It's the writing style is very of the same era as Lovecraft, and you can tell.
Yeah. Also, just like I don't know if you'd ever be down to like read Elric. I don't know if chat wants like that, but I do have a Yyrkoon voice.
I would like to read a little bit of Elric one time. It's very much something I would like to do.
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out how to structure a live stream around it. We could do at least one live stream around Elric stuff and maybe read some.
When I started reading and I picked up on Yyrkoon's character, I just immediately developed like this is Tim Curry whenever he's playing a villain. That's the voice I apply to Yyrkoon.
Oh no, so Dark Arrow, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it's written in the same era as Lovecraft and that it's those issues with like racism and stuff. I mean that like there's a certain common element to the psychedelic nature of the fantasy writing. How it'll be like, it'll seem like you're in a regular world and then it just transforms into like really poetic, psychedelic mania. Like it's hard to tell what's going on, if you're in a dream or not. And like you know, it's Lovecraft has that aspect, and so does Moorcock.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you? Wasn't it that like George also set up that for where his map in Essos cuts off, that the map in the first Elric book could actually line up with it?
Yeah, I put that in my video, my last
That,
video. That's where you saw
yeah,
that.
so like theoretically, if one were to continue east past Ashai, you go through the Saffron Straits, and eventually you'll end up in Melnibone, or you'll crash into the water walls that guard Melnibone.
That's it. I was looking to see. I thought maybe I took a screenshot. I did. Here it is.
Yeah, yeah, there it is. Yep. It just keeps going and goes to Melnibone.
Yeah, sorry about the Young Kingdom somehow turned into Ulthos, so there's a story there.
Mm.
But like, yeah, marshes of mist, mountains of the morn. Even the Cannibal Sands look like they're continued on this map. There's a desert right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. I've got so many things on the screen. All right. Well, I think that's about it for the day. So there you go. There was some moon stuff. Like I said, if you want more moons, pull down your pants, look in the mirror. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thanks, Daario. No, I did a moon lore summit with Michael Talks About Stuff. That was pretty awesome. And we took a little different angle on all this. We drilled down harder into the idea of magical moons and things like that. I wanted to focus on the pattern today. So, yeah, we did some Conquest symbolism, did some Stellarium, some Dante. Feeling pretty good. So, I think there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, Tim, that I thought would impress you.
This was a packed stream. We talked mythology, we talked A Song of Ice and Fire, we talked Eldrick, we talked real world science and real world astrology, or no, astronomy. It was a lot. we jumped around a lot, so I'll forgive people if anyone gets lost here. This was an easy one to get lost in.
Yeah, I did my best to organize it, but I could tell even as I was doing the outline, it's like, should I put this section first or that section first? I don't know. We'll probably end up just bouncing around.
Yeah, we're coming at everyone with a lot of concepts here.
Yeah, I'll check for your message in Discord, Kirsty. Thank you.
Oh yeah. The men who wear many hats. That is. Oh my hat. So many hats.
Liness is Leanna Mormont. Oh yeah, okay. So the Mormonts, right? Well, I mentioned the Great Bear and Ursa Major and Minor, right? So of course we do have the Old Bear, who would be the Great Bear, Jorah Mormont. He's up north at the Wall, and then of course there is a Lyanna Mormont, who brings Lyra and Ursa Major together. So that's cool. Where's Ursa Minor? Not all of them are labeled on here. That's the links. Okay. Gemini. Oh, that's cool. Venus is in Gemini right now. Look at that. It's the Moon Maid. There's Orion. So, Tim, have you heard me talk about this thing, Orion and Scorpio? And how the myth of Orion, it is that he's bitten by the scorpion, and then they're both put in the sky on opposite sides of the plane, so that they'll never be in the sky at the same time, so they won't fight.
Now, I've heard you talk about like legends surrounding the constellations, but not this one specifically.
So you see Orion there. He's on the ecliptic. He's not a zodiac constellation, even though he's on the ecliptic. Kind of a ripoff. And why won't it rotate the way I want it to? And it really is.
Oh, and then which one is the secret 13th constellation? Or the Zodiac?
Ophiuchus.
Ophiuchus.
And that is, I gotta find like serpents and shit. I don't know why it's not giving me the ecliptic. It was last night.
And Ophiuchus is a serpent?
He's called the serpent bearer. He's wrestling a serpent.
Ah.
The constellation serpents. It's hard to see looking at this. You have to look at the drawing of it.
Why didn't he make it into the main 12? Why is he secret 13?
Because they were going for 12, I think. So look at Scorpio here. This thing here. This is this 3. That's supposed to be the head and the 2 stingers. There's different ways to draw it, but those 3 stars, the idea is the head and 2 stingers. Also looks like a 3-headed dragon. And in fact, the 3-headed dragon of Proto-Indo-European myth and even older is probably based on Scorpio. And so the whole Dragon Slayer mythology is actually, the oldest version of it is this 3-headed dragon of Scorpio versus Orion, who's on the other side over here. No, where is he? I just went all the way around. I went the wrong way. There's Orion. So anyway, yeah, it's a very old myth, but there's a guy named John Grigsby who did a whole thesis researching it. And basically, yeah, it says the Dragon Slayer myth is like 10,000 years old. And it is a combination of the idea of the sun splitting apart the darkness and the sunrise. So the dragon is the darkness and the hero is the sun. And his sword is that slit, like literally the light that slits the horizon open. That's why a lot of the mythologies, Tim, you slay the dragon and then you make the world out of its body parts. Or you slay a giant and make the world out of its body parts. Because the giant is just the darkness. And so when the sun rises, the darkness transforms into the land. So we're making the land out of the dark monster by slaying it with the sunrise.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like one of the big things, like every culture, along with a creation myth, usually every culture around the world has some kind of dragon and some kind of giant somewhere in its legends and myths.
It's basically all the Proto-Indo-European mythologies and all the Middle Eastern Fertile Crescent related mythologies. So Egypt and Sumer, and they've all got it too. So that's almost everybody at that point. That's like the major branches of mythology that we're familiar with. So they took that idea of the warrior and the dragon, and they mapped it onto this Orion and Scorpio pairing. Because they are on opposite sides. And so there's like, depending on where you are in the world, as the season switches from one to the other, one takes power and the other doesn't. So it's like, oh, the dragon's been slain because now he's below the horizon and now Orion is ascendant. And that means it's either winter or summer or whatever. So something like that. Anyways, thank you all. You've been a beautiful audience. And I'll see you with Secret Origin of Casterly Rock this week, which will feature new Atlantis Corlos Son of Castor artwork. I've seen the mock-up. It's going to be great. And then Land the Clever the week after. Next Sunday will be Weirwood Grove of Nine with Sean. We're going to read that chapter and also tie in some other Grove of Nine symbolism to try to explain it. And that's what's coming up soon. And then, Tim's birthday at the end of the month on the 31st. So there you go. Go buy some t-shirts. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment on the way out. And we'll get a hold of our t-shirt winners shortly. to get your information. And subscribe to Grey Waste Tim because he's cool. And he came on the channel to entertain us with his new theory that he thought of.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That I thought I was so original about.
You did. You found it on your own.
Yeah.
It's just as brilliant as when I found it.
Yeah. It's always fun to revisit things and look at them in a new light and with a second pair of eyes because you can get new perspectives on them.
I didn't have some jerk to step in and go, I already thought of that and wrote it out, so don't even bother as soon as I started thinking it. So I'm glad that you did have that fun brainwave, though. That is like kind of the payoff of all this stuff is like, oh, putting things together and seeing the pattern just line up in front of you. And you're like, oh, wait, Visenya went to the Vale and Meraxes was shot down in Dorne. And
everyone has the eureka moment in the bathtub and then goes to find like somebody already had a patent.
Samson's did it.
Samson's did it.
Well, again, we're all just learning from George, and George is just recycling the older legends that he learned from myths and Tolkien and everywhere else. So just links in the chain, baby. Anyways, y'all have a good weekend, and I'll, like I said, leave a comment on the way out. That'd be helpful. And subscribe to Grey Waste Tim. Cheers.
Good night.